Hello and welcome back to another Pauper Buyer's Guide video. We've got another set review buyer's guide thing here that we do when each new set comes out, and we have The Hobbit coming out very, very soon, but the full set preview is out there now, so this is the perfect time to take a look at all the commons and let you know, are any of them good for Pauper play or not. I'm going to be looking at every common from both the regular Hobbit set and also the Eternal Hobbit set, which I believe just means the cards that are in the commander decks. Those cards are, I believe, all just reprints, so we'll be able to go through them very quickly. But honestly, that's probably the most exciting part of all of these spoilers here that we got for the Hobbit is the Eternal ones, because they reprinted some cards that you'd really want in Pauper. And so maybe those cards will go down a little bit in price. Not that they're super expensive now, but hey, another printing of cards is always a good thing. So this will be a relatively long video, even though this is a smaller set. This will still be, we're looking at 100 cards here, and that's going to take a while. So sit back and relax. And if you don't want to watch a video this long, I'm going to pull out the top 5 or something, like the most interesting cards from this set for the Pauper format, and we'll make a separate shorter video for that. So you can look forward to that as well. Last thing before we get into it, it is, what day is it? Is it August 1st? Yeah, it's August 1st today. And, you know, I did some early voting. You should go do that. If you can do early voting, if your state allows early voting, go do that. It took me like 5 minutes to go to the library and get in line, and line didn't take any time at all. It took like a couple minutes, and then I was out. It was great. And then I treated myself to a big Sonic drink afterward. It's a win-win. You really should vote, even if you don't care about the candidates or don't even know some of the candidates. There are propositions and amendments and things. I know here in Missouri, they want to put some real bullshit into our Constitution. So it's very important to go in and vote and let your voice be heard. That little spiel out of the way, let's get in to looking at some cards, shall we? I'm going to take one sip first. I earned it. Very good. Okay, we will start with a reprint. It's Dunedain Blade, which is 1 and a white for an artifact equipment. Equipped creature gets +2/+1. You can equip a human for 1 mana, and you can equip anything else for 3 mana at sorcery speed. Wasn't great before, not really that great now. It is, it's like an unholy strength, but in white, which is funny. I don't know. I mean, yeah, there are lots of humans in the format that you could probably equip this to, but I mean, like a go wide kind of deck doesn't really care about this. You'd rather just play more creatures and go wider. And so I don't think this is really necessary. Again, we've seen this card before in the Lord of the Rings Middle-earth set, and it just got a new Hobbit Eternal version for whatever commander deck or whatever, I don't know, whatever product they're making now that includes this. So this is not all that great. I forgot, do I score these? I guess I do score these, but the scores kind of don't matter a little. I mean, they do. I'm gonna score them all, but then if they show up in the, the 10 Pauper cards rated or rating Pauper cards videos that I do, that's the official rating. Not that rating matters either. This is, I don't know, this is like what, like a 2.3, something like that. Not particularly great. I'm also going to write down any cards that I feel like I need to get, because this is a buyer's guide mostly for me, but you're welcome to stay here and listen to it. All right, that was our first card, and we've already taken up 4 minutes of your time. Let's speed this up a little bit and get down to a new card, brand new card here, Dwarven Provisioner. Let's scoot it back up a little bit. Yeah. Dwarven Provisioner is 1 and a white for a 2/2 dwarf citizen. You can pay 3 and a white, and creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. That's a fine little grizzly bear. Has a little extra gravy on it there. And 4 mana for a team-wide pump for a turn is not great, but it's also not terrible. You might use that in a limited sense. I don't know how much you're going to play a card like this in Pauper. I guess if you have infinite mana, you can pump all of your creatures infinitely. Sure. But overall, I don't think you'll play much of this either. I will give it something like a 2.6, though. I do like a team-wide pump like this, and you could see where it could go into a go-wide deck and make everything bigger, but it's not amazing. Next is Dwarven Short Sword. God, that is difficult to say. 3 and a white for an artifact equipment. When this equipment enters, you create a 2/2 red dwarf creature token, then attach this equipment to it. An equipped creature gets +1/+2, and it equips for 2. I do like equipment that makes a little body. I mean, I like equipment that just attaches to a creature. I think even better, because usually the ones that like this that equip to its own token, the tokens aren't very good to begin with, and the card is just really expensive, and that's the case here. I think this card is way too expensive because you're paying 4 mana for a 3/4. But if your 3/4 dies, then you can equip a Holy Strength onto something for 2 mana, and that's also not great. It's kind of like the inverse of the Dunedain Blade. I don't particularly think this is interesting, and I would give it, I don't know, like maybe just a straight 2. I don't know why I keep picking up my pen like I'm going to make marks, because there's nothing to mark here on this one. Okay, here's what I was talking about. Eagles of the North, 5 and a white. You kind of know what Eagles of the North does, right? We'll talk about it here, but the point is we get the 1 mana cyclers, land cyclers, back for the Eternal set, the Hobbit Eternal set here, which means they get a new printing. Now, Eagles of the North is not the most expensive one of these in the cycle at 31 cents, but we're going to find some later down the line where we go, ooh, man, it'll be nice to have something that's a little cheaper out there. So all these 1 mana cyclers are back. This is probably the best news of the entire any Hobbit set stuff. These are the biggest things. They will make the biggest impact in the Pauper format, is that a cycle of cards got a reprint. That is the best thing, in my opinion. Maybe you'll find something. Maybe we'll find something as we keep going down the line here. But this is the thing I'm most excited about, is just reprints of Troll of Khazad-dûm, Lorien Revealed, Oliphant, that kind of thing. Eagles of the North, though, 5 and a white for a 3/3 bird soldier with flying. And when this creature enters, creatures you control get +1/+0 and gain first strike until end of turn. That's fine. But again, the best thing here is the plain cycling for 1. Every other cycler or land cycler thing that we have costs 2. And we get those in so many sets. We saw it in Final Fantasy sets. We see it in Lost Caverns of Ixalan sets. Like it's UB, it's Universes Within. They just print all these 2 mana cyclers, and they printed one cycle of 1 mana cyclers. That's sorry. I'm so sorry. Those words came out of my mouth in that arrangement. But these are just obviously the best. They've just been the best, and they continue to be the best. So these being reprinted, even in a Eternal set where they won't be as printed as highly as something that would be like in a standard legal set, it's still a new printing, which is going to bring prices down, and that's amazing. So Eagles still gets like a 6. The other ones will get higher, but Eagles is still pretty good too. Errand Rider of Gondor is 2 and a white for a 3/2 human soldier. When this creature enters, draw a card. If you don't control a legendary creature, put a card from your hand on the bottom of your library. Interesting that it goes on the bottom, but other than that, not very interesting at all. It's just a 3 mana 3/2, and it does draw you a card, or kind of loots, kind of like a worse loot, I suppose. We've had this card before. It wasn't good then. It's not good now. It's like a 2.3, I guess. Maybe. Oh, God. Okay, I've read The Hobbit. I do need to put that out there. I have not actually read Lord of the Rings. I've watched the movies, which I know doesn't count. But I've actually read The Hobbit, and I still will mess up all these names. I promise you that. I'll try my best. Esgaroth Garrison is 4 and a white for a star 5 human soldier. Esgaroth Garrison's power is equal to the number of creatures you control, and when this creature enters, you recruit. Recruit is a new keyword here. So what does recruit do? Well, you draw a card and then discard a card. And if you discarded a non-land card, you create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. So it's kind of like Connive. It's a lot like Connive in that you loot. You draw a card, you discard a card, and if it's a non-land card, something happens. With Connive, it's a +1/+1 counter on whatever creature connived, and on this recruit, you get a 1/1 human soldier creature token. I think recruit is a fantastic ability. I love this keyword, and it's one of the better things about this set. But I also don't necessarily think there are all that many great recruit cards in the set. So this might be something that down the line we get another set that uses recruit in some way, and I think I'll be more excited about it. I'm not as excited about it, at the very least, from the commons that I see in this set. But I would like to see more recruit because I think this ability is really cool. So what do we think about Esgaroth Garrison itself? You get a human soldier that potentially makes you another human soldier. I do like that in both human-based decks and soldier-based decks. This is the right color for that, being white. It does remind me a little bit of a Leonardo Big Brother in that it is bigger. It's a star power. So you and the star is equal to the number of creatures you control. That's very much like Leonardo. Leonardo can sneak in for very cheaply, though. This has to come in for 5 mana. And I don't really like a card that has to cost 5 mana, especially if I'm going to put it in some kind of go wide deck. I guess you could put this in like Pack Beast, but even that is the reason you play a card like Pack Beast is because it has affinity for creatures, and you can pay very little mana for your 4/3 that comes in and draws you a card. This comes in, loots you a card, which isn't really the same thing, and does put 2 bodies on the table. That's nice, but it's just too expensive. If this could have been like a 3 mana card and maybe you take the toughness way down, I think we could have a really good conversation about it. At 5 mana, this is just kind of maybe a cool limited card. I don't even know if it's that, because in limited, I don't know if you can necessarily get enough stuff on the table to make this be as impactful as you want. I mean, it comes down on an empty board. It comes down and it can be a 2/5. I don't want to pay 5 mana for a 2/5, even if it could get bigger. I don't. This is one. Sadly, this is one of the more interesting cards I think we're going to see. But I still don't think it's actually a very good card. So I'm going to go for something like a 2.5. I think. Yeah. Esquire of the King is a single white mana for a 1/1 human soldier with the ability pay 4 and a white and tap, and creatures you control get +1/+1 until end of turn. This ability costs 2 less to activate if you control a legendary creature. That was very hard to do when this first came out in Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth. It's a lot easier to do now because we have all sorts of common legends in Pauper. I don't think this is good enough to go in any of those decks. I don't mind a 1 mana 1/1, but it needs to have something really good on it at this point, or just cool vanilla keywords would be all right with me, like a Segovian Angel, which has flying and vigilance, and I go, okay, well that's kind of worth it for my 1 mana. This I don't think is worth it for my 1 mana. Even if you get the cost reduction, that's still a 3 mana cost, and you have to tap down this creature, so the creature getting +1/+1. I suppose that happens at instant speed, so you could do this as like a combat trick for blocking. I'd rather do it as an offensive thing, but then you lose out on the point of power, or technically the 2 points of power that you'd get with this by using its ability. I get that they don't want it to be like this card, which can potentially, I mean, you can keep paying this and keep pumping. They don't want you to be able to do that with the cost reduction with this. So I understand why it taps. It just kind of makes it suck. And we haven't seen it see play before, and I don't think we'll see it see play now. It's like a 2.1. Fog on the Barrow Downs is 2 and a white for an enchantment aura. Enchants a creature. Enchanted creature is a spirit and can't attack or block. It's a worse pacifism. That's pretty bad. Art's cool. The rest of the card is really quite bad. I'll give it a 1.9. Bad before, still bad now. Lake Town Lookout, single white mana for a 1/1 human scout. When this creature dies, you recruit. Is this okay? One of the almost certainly the cheapest recruit card we will see in this entire set, being that it only costs 1 mana. It being a dies trigger, You know, is this better than a Doom Traveler? Is this better than an Infestation Sage? And I think the answer's no. I think the answer's no. You can make an argument though. You know, Infestation Sage or Doom Traveler, those make a flyer when they die. So you do get a better creature when this thing dies. So those are pretty good for any sort of sacrifice things that you're playing. This gets you a 1/1 that loots, connive loot, you know. Um, but it is still a conditional 1/1. You know, you can't discard a land if you want the 1/1. You still get to draw and discard, so you still get that card selection no matter what, and that's not terrible. But it's also not great. It's it's okay though. It is one of the more okay cards in the set, and I think I could give it something like a. I think I could go as high as like a 3. Man, maybe even higher than that. I think I could go. I could go like a 3.8. I think there's some potential to this card. It just needed a little something more. I don't know if the card had first strike or something. I guess not. You wouldn't want first strike because then it would be harder to kill, and you kind of want it to die. I don't know. Maybe if this had higher power, maybe if it was like a Savannah Lions, so then you feel like, okay, it's going to take something else out on the opponent's side. You know, maybe it can trade blocks with, and not just chump, but actually make a good block, and then you still get a guy and a card selection after that. I could probably go for it at that point, but it just being a 1-mana 1/1, I don't think the recruit is quite good enough to make this worth putting in your decks. And I think it would also have to be in black if we wanted to consider this at all. You know, Doom Traveler, cool card, but white doesn't have as many sacrifice decks as mono black does. And yeah, you could certainly splash white in there to be able to do some Orzhov sacrificing, but Orzhov sacrifice stuff is not as popular in Pauper. I think it works in other formats, but in Pauper, if you're doing a sacrifice thing, it's probably more mono black. And I don't think this guy quite makes it, but he is one of the cooler cards I think we'll see. Magnificent End is 4 and a white for an instant. This spell costs 3 less to cast if it targets a tapped creature. Magnificent End deals 5 damage to target creature. This one's interesting. We see cards like this all the time. You know, Ride's End is probably still the best one of these. Ride's End, though, if I remember right, Ride's End has to be an attacking creature, or is that one tapped too? It is just a tap permanent. So Ride's End is still just a better card because it exiles. It has basically the same text otherwise, costing 3 less if it has a tap permanent, but it also hits vehicles. It hits vehicles and it targets, it exiles. And those things are just better than this. This deals 5 damage to target creature. It doesn't even destroy the creature. And we've gotten other ones that destroy the creature. I think there was one in Duskmourn that did this exact same thing, except it just destroyed the creature. So this is worse by all accounts. Art, though, is really good. I do like just seeing a big Smaug on the card. That's always fun. But I do like that it deals 5 damage. There is a Smaug in here that is a 5/5 creature, so having this be able to take out Smaug, that's good flavor. And you hear me talk about it on this channel all the time. 5 is kind of the big threshold that we're looking for when we're talking about things that can hit Tolarian Terror or Gurmag Angler or Boulder Branch Golem. There's a lot of stuff that is 5 toughness that is very important to kill, and this does hit that threshold. It just does it with a card that we already have a better version of. So I can't in good conscience give this a good score, even if it's a pretty good card, and you'll probably play every single copy you'll find in a limited environment. But for a Pauper format, no, this is like a 2.2. Moment of Glory is a single white mana for a sorcery. Put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. If this spell was cast from a graveyard, also put a +1/+1 counter on each other creature you control. Okay. And it has flashback for 4 and a white. That's how you can cast it out of your graveyard. Okay. This is almost cool. We have other cards that that are in the format that get played in Mono White Heroic. We now have, I think, 2 that are exactly the same text but just different card names. So you can play up to 8 copies of those in any of your Mono White Heroic decks. I don't think you play 8. I don't even think you necessarily play 5, but you at least have those options. A Moment of Glory, though, like those cards, sorry, those are other cards that I'm talking about. Those are 1 mana, put a 1/1 counter on a guy, and then it flashbacks, I think, for also just 1 mana, or maybe it's 2 mana, but it's also really cheap and it just does the thing again. This one, I get that it's a bigger effect. I get that it can potentially put a +1/+1 counter on all your dudes, and if you have a go wide strategy, that's pretty cool. 5 mana is a lot of mana. 5 mana is just a lot of mana. I do like that it targets each time, that it still targets the one creature, even if you're flashing back, but then it also gives counters to the other things. So if you are doing a mono white heroic thing and you are trying to play this card, you will still get the heroic triggers, even when you flash this back, because you'll still get the one target, and then everything else will also get it. That's cool, but this is just costed out. It needs to be something like 3 mana, and 3 mana might be too cheap. Maybe we'd have to talk about 4, but at 5, it's just too much. I think you can go for like a 2.7 on this, but not really any higher. Ori, Keeper of Songs, is our first legendary creature at common. We're still doing this. It's 2 and a white for a legendary creature, Dwarf Bard. It's a 3/3. It has Storied. That's the other big mechanic out of this set. Storied says if you control 3 or more artifacts, legendaries, and or sagas, you have an enduring story for the rest of the game. So it's a little bit like Ascend, or like the city's blessing kind of thing. So it's like having the city's blessing, but you also need to have historic permanents, and historics are the artifacts, legendaries, and or sagas. This is pretty easy to do in Pauper, obviously. This guy already counts as one legendary guy that you've got, so the count's already high, so you only need 2 other ones. Artifacts are really easy to get in Pauper through tokens or through just affinity stuff, or the artifact lands. Those all count. Those are great things. Sagas don't get played as often, but I think just artifacts alone make this pretty simple to get storied and then have that extra effect happen on all your cards. We haven't even talked about what this card does though yet. So it's a 3/3, and it says as long as you have an enduring story, Ori gets +1/+0 and has vigilance. So a 3 mana 3/3, that's okay, I guess. It's generally on rate, but a 3 mana 4/3 with vigilance, it's pretty good. It's not amazing, but it's pretty good. I would still take a Pauper or a Pack Beast instead. You know, a 4/3 that I could potentially only pay 1 for, and it draws a card and replaces itself like that. I think that is still the better card. But Ori is fine. It's just fine. And if a dwarf deck really shows up in the format, which I don't think it's going to, but if it did, I think Ori's a fine piece to go into it. We could go for a 3 here. Maybe lower than a 3. Maybe like a 2.9. I don't know if it's quite 3 territory. 2.9 is fine. Yeah, he seems okay. Good job, Ori. Soldier of the Grey Host. This is another reprint we've seen here. 3 and a white for a 2/2 spirit soldier with flash and flying. And when this creature enters, target creature gets +2/+0 until end of turn. It is cool. It's nice to have a 2/2 flash flying that can come down, and it could potentially give itself the +2/+0. So now you're blocking with 4 flying, and that's a combat trick at that point. That's, hey, your opponent didn't know you were going to be able to block their flyer with this 4/2. Pretty sweet. Maybe you even completely block their guy, even with just the 2 toughness. So I guess like a fairy on their end, and you kill their fairy. Great, awesome. You can also give the +2/+0 to another creature, and so maybe that creature can block better, and so that's not bad either. It's a fine little piece. It's probably more of a limited card than anything. It doesn't really go into a Pauper game that I would play, but still, that's a neat little trick. I'll give a neat little trick, something like a 2.5, and we'll move on. To Thorin's Last Stand, 2 and double white. For an instant, you choose one. Either creatures you control get +2/+1 until end of turn, or you destroy target artifact or enchantment, you gain 2 life. This is fine. The rate's just a little too high. I don't really want to pay 4 mana for this. It does have that modality, which I like. I like both of these modes. Giving all your creatures +2/+1 is something that we've seen on white before. I like this at instant speed. I like being able to play this on a go wide kind of strategy. It is just too expensive for that. And the other mode is pretty good too. It's even worse from an from an expense standpoint. You know, I don't want my disenchant to cost 4. I barely want my disenchant to cost 2. But the 2 life is fine. It's an okay piece of gravy. I feel like they felt like they had to put something else on it because just a disenchant for 4 mana is really bad. Yeah, this could be a really good card at 3 mana, but it would also probably be too good of a card. Maybe. But at 4 mana, I don't think it's good enough, and I'd have to give it something like a 2.8. Nah, I could give it higher than that. I think you can go 3 on this one, but just rate's a little off. Velvet Wing Butterflies is 2 and a white for a 2/2 insect with flying. And that's its creature side, but it also has an adventure. The adventure is Gaze in Wonder for 1 and a white. That's an instant speed adventure. Tap 1 or 2 target creatures. Pretty cool. So then, like all adventure cards do, this goes into exile, and then you can cast the creature part later. You can cast it on that same turn if you got the mana. You know, a Windrake is not my favorite creature in all of Magic, but a white Windrake, a 3 mana 2/2 flyer. Okay. The adventure mode is okay too. I instant speed, tap a couple guys, that can really save you. That's sometimes just as good as a fog in certain aspects, and then sometimes even better than a fog because you can also use this offensively to tap down a couple of your opponent's creatures before you swing in for the big alpha strike. These are okay things. I don't think either of these things are so good that I want to play this card in any one of my decks. But I do like the idea, and I think the art's great. Art's really good. So I'm actually giving these pretty decent scores, I think, for overall how I feel about the set. I'll give this like a 3.1. No, is it better than this? I don't think it's better than Thorin's Last Stand. Maybe. These are both 3.1 cards. Let's go with that. Vow to Erebor is 1 and a white for an instant. Untap target creature you control. It gets +2/+2 until end of turn. If it's a dwarf, you may attach an equipment you control to it. That's cool. That is cool. We've already gotten a card like this, right? Isn't there an Assassin's Creed card that is like really close to this? Instant in white, Assassin's Creed, and Legal and Pauper. Yeah, Battlefield Improvisation. Target creature gets +2/+2. If that creature is attacking, you may attach any number of equipment to it. Okay, so it's a little different. This one is a combat trick that untaps target creature you control, so you can use it for blocking, but you can also use this offensively, knowing that you're swinging in, but it kind of gives it pseudo-vigilance. So that does give it a little bit of a different idea. But this can also attach any number of equipment. So if you have a lot of equipment on the ground, this is the way better card for sure. But you also have to just be attacking with this creature. I mean, not always, because you can just give it the +2/+2. But if you're attacking, you get all this bonus gravy. This card's really good. This card is $9. I remember seeing this card at $3 and thinking that's way too expensive. But also, I've bought like 6 packs of Assassin's Creed hoping to just get a copy of this or a couple copies. It's a common, right? And I've never gotten one. And at this point, I don't want to keep buying into this, and I refuse to pay these singles prices. This is crazy for a common, but it's just because nobody wants to open this set. these packs aren't good. But this card is pretty good. Anyway, that's not why we're here. We're here to talk about Vow to Erebor. And while I don't think it completely replaces battlefield improvisation, because this has to be attached to a dwarf, and that is really limiting you. I know there are changelings in the format, but there's a lot of cards that I would probably want to play this with, and almost none of them are dwarfs. So yeah, the regular little combat trick part's fine, but nothing special. You really need the equipment part to make this a cool card. And it being limited like this to just a single creature type, I can't in good conscience give this much in the way of a good score. I think you can go for like a 2.2. Yeah. Westfold Rider is our final white card of the day. This is also a reprint, so nothing really to write home about. We haven't seen it get played much in the Pauper format. It's not a bad card, though. 1 and a white for a 3/1 human knight. Sacrifice this creature, destroy target artifact or enchantment, activate only as a sorcery. I don't love the sorcery part, and we do just kind of have a better card at that point. It's Cathar Commando, which is 1 and a white for a 3/1, same stats, that can flash in, which is really good. Now you do have to pay one into it and sack it and destroy target artifact or enchantment. But this guy can come in at flash speed and then can also use this ability at instant speed. So it is kind of just a 3-mana disenchant, but on a body. That's awesome. Like, you could even flash this in, block a guy, and then in response to the damage phase, then you sacrifice this and destroy whatever. So in that way, you could possibly prevent a lot of damage and also remove something on your opponent's board. Westfold Rider, yeah, you can do this for free, but now it has to be activated at sorcery speed, and the creature also has to come down at sorcery speed because it doesn't have flash itself. So it's a bit of a, hey, I can do this for 2 mana, but at 2 mana, now it has to all be sorcery speed. And I think I'd rather just take the Cathar Commando at that point. Also, doing this at sorcery speed means you can't do that cool Cathar Commando thing of blocking a creature and then in response sacrificing it. That just won't do. And that probably is the thing that stops this from being better than, or having any real chance against Cathar Commando. Now, Cathar Commando is a soldier. This is a knight. If a knight's deck shows up in Pauper somewhere, maybe this is a guy that goes in as a halfway decent knight that can also be a piece of removal. But hasn't seen much play so far, and I doubt we'll see much more play now that it's in another set. I don't think that really makes a difference. It gets like a 3.2, maybe higher than that. I could go for like a 3.4. That's all the white cards. How are we doing on time? 30 minutes in. Maybe we could go a little faster. Maybe I could do a few less look-ins to other cards. We'll see. Bilbo Baggins Burglar is 2 and a blue for a 2/1 legendary creature, halfling rogue. And when Bilbo enters, you draw a card. Not too bad on its own. Not great, but not too bad. But it also has an adventure attached to it, which is Take a Glance, which is a sorcery, and you scry 2. And then, you do the adventure thing, you exile it, and you can cast the creature later. This is not the worst turn 1 play in the world to get like a fairy. What is that called? Card called? I play it all the time. I play mono blue fairies. The fairy that comes down and scries 2. That one. But like that's out there. So you do see a creature out there that gets played like that. Fairy Seer. That's it. Why did I forget Fairy Seer? So it's a Fairy Seer, but you don't get the body on turn 1, and also this thing never flies, but you can cast it eventually as a 2/1 on turn 3 and then draw a card. Is any of this good? Not really. And even if you scried both to the top, your next turn 2, you put down your second mana, you'll draw one of the cards that you scried. And then on turn 3, before you can even cast this, you draw the other card that you scried. So it's not like this guy even comes down to make sure that you draw that card that you really wanted. I don't know. I don't think that's good. I don't think that's good. I really don't think a 3-mana 2/1 that draws you a card when it comes into play is good at all. And just being able to scry earlier. I know this gets more cards per card in your deck. I get 2 spells on 1 card. Isn't that card advantage? I guess so. But neither of these are very good, in my opinion. Yeah, I think this is actually kind of a bad card, the more I think about it. I'll give it a 2. No, it's better than a Grizzly Bear. Is it? I'll give it a 2.2 and move on. Captain of Umbar, we've seen before. It's 2 and a blue for a 2/3 human pirate. You can pay 1, tap it, draw a card, and discard a card. It's a merfolk looter that has a better body, but also has to pay 1 every time you want to do the merfolk looter thing. I think I'd just play merfolk looter at that point. The Captain of Umbar looks cool. Hasn't seen any play, but it does look cool. Looking cool's all right. I'll give it a 2.4. I think it's better than Bilbo. Confiscate, or can nope, I already messed up. Confusticate, confusticate. There you go. Confusticate and Bother is 2 and a blue for an instant. Choose 1, counter target spell unless its controller pays 4. That's pretty good. Or draw 2 cards and then discard a card. That's also not bad. Like, neither of these are terrible. And I do like that you have a modal card that gives you these options. At instant speed, drawing 2 and discarding 1. That's worse than a quick study, but not by a whole lot, honestly. And then you're getting kind of a... I mean, it's better than a mana leak, but it also costs more than a mana leak. I'm sure there's another card out there that's... Isn't there like a Doctor Who thing, like a dazzling something? Maybe it's not in Doctor Who, but there's another common card that I think is just a counter target spell unless its controller pays 4 that's out there that might cost 3. So this is probably a strictly better version of that. 3 mana for either of these effects is not the best, but it's not bad. I think you'll also play every copy you'll see in limited of this. But for the Pauper format, I think both of these are just too expensive. We have so many good counter spells in this format that cost 1, and then especially at 2. I don't think you need to worry about getting them at 3. And if you need draw spells at 3, I think maybe you're messing up. There are also a ton of really good draw spells in blue for 1 and 2 mana at common rarity. Yeah, you get them both on 1 card here, and that's cool, but it doesn't make me want to pay 3 mana for it. Still, I think this could probably like bump up into like a 4.1. I do like these abilities. That nothing bad about these for sure. That's our first page. We got 4 more of these to go. Elven King's Harper is 1 and a blue for a 2/2 elf bard. You can pay 4 and a blue, and target creature can't be blocked this turn. Do we have a whole cycle of grizzly bears here that have some kind of activated ability on them? This one's also pretty bad. 5 mana to make a creature unblockable is a lot of mana. It's just a ridiculous amount of mana, and I don't think that makes a big difference to a creature that's a grizzly bear otherwise. This is... I guess it's like a 2.1. It's technically better than a grizzly bear, but I don't know when you will have the mana to pay for that ability, and you certainly won't have the mana to pay for that ability twice in the same turn. That's crazy. Yeah, 2.1. Enchanted River's Grasp is 2 and a blue for an enchantment aura. Enchants a creature. When this aura enters, tap enchanted creature and remove all counters from it. Enchanted creature loses all abilities and doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. They're trying. They're trying to make these blue removal spells better. I think Blossom Bind still is just the better one, because that's a card that comes down for 2 mana. This does more than a Blossom Bind in removing all counters from the creature, but at 3 mana, it's too much. It's just priced out at that point. We have enough decent ones of these at 2 mana in blue, and sometimes even 1 mana with something like Unable to Scream. I don't think this is good enough to make me want to pay 3 mana for it. I need that mana for other things. Yeah. Yeah, it's cool though. I mean, I'll still give it a 3.1. I might even go for a 3.2, but it's just too expensive for what I need it to do. I need that slot to be 2 mana, if not 1 mana, but I need that slot to be 2 mana. At 3 mana, I just can't justify that in my decks. Gandalf. They made a common Gandalf. Does that make sense? Gandalf ain't common. Gandalf's a rare dude. Not a man. He's an avatar wizard, but you know, he's a rare. Why is he a common? I don't like this. 4 and a blue. Sorry, Gandalf Wandering Wizard is 4 and a blue for a 4/5 Avatar Wizard. He's got Ward 3. It's a lot of Ward, and you can pay 6 whole mana. And Gandalf's owner shuffles him into their library and draws 3 cards. This sucks. This sucks. It sucks that this is what they give to a legendary creature. It sucks that they feel like they have to put legendary creatures at common, and then knowing that they're common, they have to make them garbage. Not all legendary creatures at common are garbage. We've seen good ones show up in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles with Leonardo and Orokosaki and Raphael Tough Turtle. This is bad. I don't like this. 4/5 with no evasion. I don't love that for 5 mana. The Ward 3, sure, I guess it keeps it on the table, but keeps it on the table to do what? And then paying 6 mana to shuffle this back into your deck? Come on. If I'm paying 6 mana, you should just give me the 3 cards for no more cost. But having to put Gandalf into the library is wild. That is incredibly wild to me. It does draw you 3 cards, I guess. You could also draw Gandalf as one of your cards because the shuffle happens. The shuffle is not part of the cost. The shuffle happens as part of the ability. So the shuffle happens and then you draw 3 cards. So you could end up drawing Gandalf again. And I just paid 6 mana. I definitely don't have 5 more mana to recast Gandalf if I get him in one of my 3 cards. I mean, I guess if Gandalf was part of the cost, that would also make sure he goes into the deck first. But that's neither here nor there. I think this should say draw 3 cards and then shuffle Gandalf in, and I would still hate it. But I hate it even more knowing that one of the cards I could draw could be Gandalf again, and just I would be so angry. I would be so angry. Maybe you want that because then you could recast Gandalf. If you have 6 mana to pay for the ability, you probably have 5 mana on the next turn to pay for Gandalf again. But this angers me on so many levels. I just want to give it a terrible score because of how much I hate it, but I'm going to try to be a little bit more unbiased than that and go, okay, it's like a 3, I guess. I can do this in response to something else. I can block an opponent's creature, that Cathar Commando thing I was mentioning. I guess you can do it here too. You can block a big creature, and then in response, shuffle him and draw a few cards. It's like a 3.4 or a 3.5, but it makes me so angry. Greyhaven's Navigator, we have this card before, but we're getting it again in the Eternal set. 2 and a blue for a 3/2 elf pilot. It's got flash, and when this creature enters, you scry 1. It's normal, pretty normal card. Pilot is interesting. I mean, I guess it's a navigator, but still, pilot's a really interesting creature type to put on this. But the elf part's the part that you care about, and the elf being blue is probably something that bugs you. Not that all elves have to be green. There are certainly plenty of elves in other colors, but where do you play it and why in the Pauper format? And the answer is probably nowhere, and I guess I wouldn't. I'll give it a 2.4. I guess it does have flash, so I can treat it as a combat trick, but man, can you tell I'm not the biggest fan of this set so far? I mean, I like the set idea. I like the flavor of it. I thought Lord of the Rings was pretty good. I think it generally fits in with Magic. I think you can look at a card like Greyhaven's Navigator, and even if you didn't know that Greyhaven's was a Lord of the Rings thing, or if you didn't know that Greyhaven's was Lord of the Rings thing, this feels like it would just work on any general Magic set flavor wise. Like it just works. It's just fine. That's what I really like, these UB properties that kind of meld right into Magic, mostly because Magic was probably inspired by them quite a bit. That's why, as much as I don't care about Elden Ring, I'm not a FromSoft guy outside of Armored Core sometimes. I wouldn't mind an Elden Ring set because it would feel pretty Magic in its flavor, in its setting, its world building. I think all that would make a lot of sense. But when you're doing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, when you're doing Star Trek, I just can't. I know we had Edge of Eternities, but there's Edge of Eternities and then there's Star Trek, and I don't. Anyway, we got to keep moving. Hithlane Knots is a card we've also seen before. 1 and a blue for an instant. Tap target creature, scry 1, and draw a card. I like that suite of abilities. That is a lot of cool stuff that blue likes to do. Tapping creatures, combat tricky kind of thing there. Scrying 1, sure, that's the thing you can do. Drawing a card. I like all those things. Do I like all those things enough at 2 mana to put this in a deck? I don't think so. At 1 mana, this would be cracked. At 2 mana, you're like, I don't know, that feels like a little much. And that's kind of wild how much 1 mana can make all the difference. But I think in here it does. This is still a really good card. I'm gonna give it something like a 4.3. It's one of the best cards I've seen, but also a card that I've seen before and still wouldn't see play. But it's pretty all right. Hithlane Knots, quite good. Ithelian Kingfisher, also from the Eternal set. We've seen this one before. This was in my Lord of the Rings pre-release, and I loved this art, and I looked at this card, and I was like, is this thing good? And not not quite. 2 and a blue for a 2/1 bird. It's got flying. When this creature dies, you draw a card. So it's, an outlaw medic, but it trades in the life link for flying, and it's 2/1 instead of 1/3. I guess it's not really like an outlaw medic, except that it dies and draws you a card. It's too expensive. It is. When you can get, I know it's not the same, but you can get a Malcator's Watcher. You can get a Malcator's Watcher for 1 mana cheaper, and it's a 1/1 with flying and vigilance, and when it dies, you draw a card. I just kind of think this is the better card. This isn't bad. It's just not great. It's going to get like a 2.5. Yeah, it's going to get like a 2.5. It's kind of whatever, but it's also relatively cool. Knights of Dol Amrath. I believe it's Amrath. Is 3 and a blue for a 3/3 human knight. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. I like these kinds of spells. I like a Fairy Vandal. I like a Mischievous Mystic. I like a lot of that stuff. I don't really like them for 4 mana. I want those cards to come down on like turn 2, and then be able to, I don't mind if they're 1/1s or 2/1s like a Mischievous Mystic is, and then each time I'm drawing that second card, I get more turns where I can draw my second card and make those cards better. In Mischievous Mystic, either making fairies or Fairy Vandal, like this one, putting a +1/+1 counter on the guy. At 4 mana, I've already probably played a lot of the cards that are drawing me the second card each turn. And so this guy comes down too late, and now I might not be able to draw those second cards again. And even if I can, this is coming down so late. I know that it comes down bigger, but it also has no forms of evasion. The Vandal has flash and flying. Now it's an uncommon, so it's not the same thing. It's not apples to it's not apples to apples here. But man, this should be playable. Like we should be able to build a card like this and have it be playable in Pauper, and this one is not, and that makes me a little sad. I'll go with a 2.7. Lakeshore Apothecary is 1 and a blue for a 1/2 human cleric with vigilance. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Yeah, like this. I didn't realize this was the next card. But yeah, this too much. Don't like this. Kind of perfect. Vigilance is not the best ability, but I also don't hate it as something now that I'm making this creature bigger and bigger and bigger. And now I not only have a pretty solid attacker that, yeah, okay, you just chump block it, but I didn't lose the creature from being able to block myself. I can keep this up and now block with my big guy against whatever you got. This gets down on turn 2. That gives you plenty of time to draw more cards on future turns. This is good. Turn 1 hardened or turn 1 hard evidence, turn 2 Lakeshore Apothecary, turn 3 I can pop the clue token and put a counter on this thing and still have a mana open to do something else with. Like that's not bad. You're figuring something out there. I don't know how much play this will see. I don't know if this ability is quite good enough for the Pauper format, but I like this ability generally. And maybe it's just because it came at the perfect time right after this card, which I don't particularly like, but I am going to give this a good score. I'm going to give this a 4.2. I think this is cool. It might even see play, and I might even have to bump that up higher later because blue has lots of ways of drawing its second card, and blue anything, blue plus whatever you want to splash can also do that relatively easily. I think this is damn solid. This is the first one I'm going to write down. Lakeshore Apothecary. Apothecary. Cool. Yeah, I'll buy 4 copies. I don't know if I'll use them, but I will buy 4 copies of this card, and it'll be super cheap. It'll be 15 cents or whatever. Pretty good. Yeah, 4.3. It's probably the best non-reprint I've seen so far today. Long Lake Nuisance is 3 and a blue for a 3/1 bird with flying, and when this creature enters, you recruit. I think it's too expensive. I know it's 3 power, and it's 3 power in the air, and it's probably going to be pretty good in limited. But outside of limited, 1 toughness is not nearly good enough. Yeah, it can put 2 bodies on the table. Yeah, it's giving you a card. He's giving some card selection in that way, but no, it's too expensive. It is just too expensive, and that's I feel that way about most cards with Recruit. I think Recruit could be a really good ability, but they've just priced it out of Pauper with these, and I don't like that. The commons. I mean, I think there are some uncommons and some rares and some mythics that do some better things with Recruit. The commons really don't. So I don't know, man. I gotta go with something like a 2.5. I just don't want to go higher than that. I don't think this is a very good card. Lorraine Revealed. Hey, we remember this card, don't we? 3 and double blue for a sorcery. You draw 3 cards, and that part's great. You'll cast that sometimes, but here, this card is mostly here for Island Cycling 1. Pay 1, discard this card, search your library for an island card, put it in your hand, then shuffle. That's great. This gets played all over the place. Mono Blue Terror likes this. It's any deck that splashes blue, you'll pay this so you can go find the island. I guess not splashes blue. It's blue plus something else. Blue and then you splash something else. So like Dimir Terror would also play this card. It does have 2 pips, 2 blue pips if you want to draw the 3 cards, and that does kind of require you to be more blue than you might want if you were playing somewhere else. But being able to island cycle this and grab one of those Dominaria dual lands or one of those Kaldheim snow duels with the land types on it, such a good card. And this, again, like this is the real winner to me, to us, when we're talking about the Hobbit set. This common card here is $5.50, and then if you want this Scrolls version, it's $14. That's crazy. That's crazy. So the hope is that by having another printing, this will be cheaper. This will be easier for people to access, and that'll be good because it is a very useful card in a lot of Pauper decks. It's it's going to be, is it this or the troll or the generous ent maybe? But I think it's this. I think this is just the best one, knowing exactly like the number one deck it goes into is mono blue terror, but also Dimir terror and also plenty of other decks that play blue. Familiars can play this card sometimes. Cawgates can play this card sometimes. Like there's a bunch of decks that really like Lorien Revealed. Lorien Revealed gets like a God. Lorien Revealed is so good. It gets like a it gets like a 9.2. It is one of the best Pauper cards of all time for just the utility of it. It's so incredibly powerful. Yeah, best card we'll see. Better than anything else here. I can promise you that there will be no better card in from the Hobbit, from any of the Hobbit sets, Eternal or Standard, that will be better than Lorien Revealed. Because this was a modern card, right? Like Lord of the Rings, Tales of Middle Earth was not a standard legal set; it was a modern legal set, and so the cards were tuned to be modern cards, which is why you can get the Island Cycling 1 instead of Island Cycling 2. So these cards are just better. They're just better than most of the cards that we're going to see today. Lorien Revealed, gets a 9.2. This is an incredible card, and I hope that this brings it down to, I don't know, like a couple bucks. I'd like it to be even less, but even at $2, I think this is a great deal. Pick up 4 copies for, however many decks you're going to use it in. But this, fantastic card. Mirkwood Mediator, probably a little less so. 2 and a blue for a 2/4 elf druid with landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, you may have this creature's base power and toughness become 4/2 until end of turn. That's kind of lame, right? I mean, yeah, it's okay. Yes, fine. It's a 4/2 when you put a land down, but I want it to have the inside out text instead. I want it to say flip its power and toughness, because then I can do more stuff with that. I can do a whole bunch of stuff to power up its toughness and then landfall to flip it. But at this point, it just changes the base power and toughness. So, I mean, imagine you put a Slagwood armor on your Slagworm armor. You're not going to do that because that's not a very good card. But that gives you +6 toughness. That makes this into a 2/10. And then you landfall, and what the card actually does that you see here would turn this card into a 4/8. And that's kind of lame. But what if it had the inside out text and said switch this creature's power and toughness, and you turned this into a 10/2? Now that would be cool. That would be cool. That's not what it does, so I really don't like it. 3 mana 2/4, already don't like it, and then the landfall. It does at least say you may have this creature's base power and toughness, because I'd hate to feel like I couldn't play a land because I need this guy to have its toughness high enough that it stops a lightning bolt that my opponent potentially has. That would feel terrible, to feel like I can't even play my lands. So at least it's a may. This card sucks. I don't like this at all. It gets a 2. It gets a 2. I really not a fan. Nimrodel Watcher, 1 and a blue for a 2/1 elf scout. Whenever you scry, this creature gets +1/+0 until end of turn and can't be blocked this turn. But this ability triggers only once each turn. Why? This isn't that strong. What would it do? How would it break the game? Whenever you scry? How many times are you scrying a turn? Do you have something that allows you to infinitely scry? Maybe, I mean, not in Pauper, I guess. In other formats, maybe you do have a way to infinitely scry. And then this becomes an unblockable combo piece, 2-card combo piece. Maybe not 2-card, I don't know, but some amount of cards combo piece that this wins. And you have to go, okay, let's just make it once a turn. But I don't know. At least say, like, thrice a turn. Like, let me do it 3 times. Let me get a bunch of scries in and give this thing some kind of power. This should be better. I don't remember seeing this at the original Lord of the Rings Middle Earth set. So I would have been pissed about it then too. I can tell you that. This gets like a 2.5. God, it should be way better though. Pelargear Survivor. I'm sorry. I don't know some of these names. And if I've seen them, I still probably haven't heard them. I didn't watch the Peter Jackson Hobbit movies because I was going to say I respect myself, but that's a little harsh. That's a little hard. Those movies aren't that bad. They're not great, right? But they're not that bad. Pelargear Survivor is 1 in a blue for a 1/3 human peasant. You can tap it to add a mana of any color, spend this mana to cast a instant or sorcery spell, and you can pay 5 in a blue and tap, and target player mills 3 cards. Those are interesting things. I like a mana dork in blue. It's a relatively rare thing. It's becoming a little less rare these days, and I know we've gotten this card before, but still kind of cool. These mana dorks that are in other colors that you'll see in red or in blue generally have some kind of narrowness to their usage. The red one not as much, I guess, but in blue definitely it's, hey, you can only cast this on artifacts, or you can only cast this on, like this one, instants and sorceries. But I still think that's kind of cool. And then this other ability is really expensive, obviously, but it's not too bad. This needed to be an advisor, so it could go into the Persistent Petitioners deck. I don't know if the Persistent Petitioners deck would actually want this card, but I don't think any deck wants this card the way it is now. If it was an advisor, I think we could at least make a case. But nope, not this time. I think it's like a 2. Yeah. Plunder the Trollshaws is 1 in a blue for an instant. Draw a card. If the spell was cast from a graveyard, draw 2 cards instead. Flashbacks for 4 in a blue. Oh boy. I mean, you tried to make a better Think Twice, and I think you made a worse Think Twice. I know. Hey, I get to draw 2 cards instead of the only 1 card that I get from Think Twice. Let's take a look at Think Twice real quick. If I can spell it right. Think Twice. And just for fun, let's look at the anime version. Hey, it's anime. 2 in a blue for an instant, draw a card. Flashbacks for 3, and you just draw another 1 card. But paying 4 mana now to draw 2? I don't know. I guess that's like a deep analysis in some way. You can make the argument. Do you think Twice? I can't look at this. It's ridiculous. Do you think Twice is better or worse than Plunder the Trollshaws? I really don't know. Let me know in the comments. But either way, not good enough for Pauper. I can tell you that one for sure. You can have the argument of whether Think Twice is better than this or the other way around, but Pauper doesn't care about either of those cards. So deep analysis is the one that you'll play. And even then, I think that's one of the weaker card draw options in a lot of those terror decks that have so many really, really good card draw options. Plunder the Trollshaws. I'll go for a 2.7. No, I can go higher. I can go higher than that. It's like a 3.4, honestly, which is not terrible, but it also doesn't make me feel very good. Uneasy Partings is 3 in a blue for an instant. This spell costs 1 less to cast if it targets an attacking non-token creature. Okay, interesting. Target creature's owner puts it on their choice of the top or bottom of their library. Well, there you go. So it's a Time Ebb. Let's look at Time Ebb. Time Ebb is 3 mana for a sorcery speed. And sorcery speed, that's important. But it also just directly puts it on top of the owner's library. This 4 mana instant speed, so you're paying 1 extra mana for the instant speed. Your opponent gets the choice whether to put it on the top or bottom. And if it's attacking, then you can make it an instant speed Tybeb. I don't think time ebs are actually all that good. I like the idea of them as a real tempo loss for the opponent, and having it at instant speed can make that tempo loss potentially even harder for the opponent, and I like that. But letting them have the choice though really does remove the tempo choice out of it, right? Or the possibility of a tempo loss out of it, because they can tempo themselves poorly to put the creature on top, and maybe they want the creature. Maybe the creature has a really cool ETB effect and you're screwing yourself. Maybe the creature can come down very cheaply now, and like it's a Tolarian Terror, and now it comes down even cheaper than it came down the first time. Maybe, I guess. Maybe it's just a really good creature and they don't mind being set back a little bit. But if they mind getting set back at all, they can just put it at the bottom and draw a fresh card when on their next draw. So there's something kind of here, but it's not quite there, and that's the real problem. I think this is like a 2.9, and I'll never play it, and you'll never play it either. Willow Wind is our last blue card of the day. It is 4 and a blue for a 3/4 elemental with flying, and when this creature enters, you scry 2. Not quite an air elemental, but trying. It's really trying. But a 3/4 that scries a couple when it comes into play. You'll feel okay about playing that in limited. But nowhere else. This gets a 2.2. All right, taking a big sip of my drink. That's good. It's good stuff. And we'll move on to the black cards. Bilbo's Deadly Slice is 1 in double black for an instant destroy target creature. It's murder. Hey, we just reprinted murder. Murder's not playable, and this isn't either. But you can now play up to 8 murders in your deck, and I'm sure you could even play 8 murders before. I don't know all the other cards that are basically just murder. This is like a 2. Murder's fine. It's higher than a 2. It's still a removal spell, like an unrestricted removal spell in black. 2.4. Crude Bent Blade is 2 and a black for an artifact equipment. When this equipment enters, target opponent sacrifices a creature of their choice. An equipped creature gets +2/+1 and equips for 2. Now, this is a little bit more interesting. You know, we have a deck that potentially this slots right into of Orzhov Blade. You know, that's a deck that likes artifacts, likes being able to play them for cheap, and 3 mana is not cheap, but it's not expensive. Being able to pick it back up and put it back down. That's a deck that loves sacrifice effects, forcing the opponent to keep sacking guys. So even the things with ward, even the things that with indestructible, you can get around those things. The unholy strength part here, the +2/+1 is, that part's, I guess it's nice that it has it, but I don't want to pay 3 mana and then 2 more mana. I don't want to pay 5 mana to give a unholy strength to something. That's a 1 mana in 1 mana aura, and now I'm paying a lot more mana to get that. But you're not really paying for the equipment here. You're paying for the end of the battlefield trigger, which is this target opponent sacrifices a creature, and that's not bad. That's not bad. It's also 3 mana, and we have a card right now that does this at 2 mana with the Tithing Blade. It doesn't have the equipment part, but it doesn't need the equipment part. The equipment part's the worst part of this card, and the equipment parts is what's justifying or trying to justify anyway, the 3rd mana of this card. So I don't think this goes into your Orzhov Blade decks, and as a person who really likes Orzhov Blade, that is my deck of choice when I am going to play Pauper. If I had to just pick one deck, that's the one I'm picking. I know it's not great. I know it's not great in the meta, but it's still my deck, and I wouldn't put this in there. And so I don't have any idea what deck wants it. I think if I were gonna play a card like this, I already have the blade, the Tithing Blade. But even if you want to go like banana anchovy or anchovy and banana pizza, which is 4 mana, that just destroys a target creature. So you can pick the one you want and then pick it back up. And I think a food is better than an unholy strength equipment. I don't love this, if I haven't made it clear. I think this is going to be like a 2.9, maybe higher. You can go like a 3.1. But just in terms of the other things that you have, and I didn't even mention the Tithing Blade can flip and then drain your opponent each turn, and that's a pretty useful part of that card as well. But Crude Bent Blade, I just don't think it. Oh my god, I was so accidentally about to make the pun of I don't think it cuts it. Well, yeah, of course it's a Crude Bent Blade. God, it's so bad. Front Porch Sentries has really cool art. Look at that art. This card looks so cool. 1 and a black for a 2/2 Goblin Soldier. We're totally getting a Grizzly Bear in every color that does a little. Well, this one, the other ones had activated abilities. This one has dies trigger, so I guess that's different. We don't have the exact cycle that I'm talking about. 1 and a black for a 2/2 Goblin Soldier. When this creature dies, target creature an opponent controls gets -1/-1 until end of turn. We have a card like this. It's the Festering Goblin? Yeah. Festering Goblin, 1 mana, 1/1, but when it dies, target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn. So, do you want to pay 1 more mana for 1 more point of power and toughness? Probably don't. You probably don't. But it's not the worst. I wish it was red. You'd get a little bit more use out of the goblins being in red. Goblins being Rakdos here will. That's a limited thing. It would also, I guess, go with the Lorwyn Eclipse and the original Lorwyn block, where goblins were red and black too. So if you're playing some kind of Rakdos goblin deck, maybe in Commander or something, well, you're not going to play this because it's not nearly good enough for Commander. But man, look at that art. That art is very cool. Stanislav, you knocked it out of the park. But the design of the card, yeah, hey, it's like a festering goblin. Isn't that funny? Yeah, it is funny, but it's not good. It gets like a 2.5. Golem Silent Slinker is 3 and a black for a 4/3. Oh my god. 4/3 legendary creature, halfling horror, and it's got menace. But it also has a sorcery adventure attached to it, which is Meager Meal. So a single black mana, you can put a +1/+1 counter on up to 1 target creature, and target player gains 2 life. I do like that it says up to 1 target creature, so I can play this and just gain the life if I'm really hurting for it. But if I have a creature on the board, I can at least pump it up and gain the 2 life. But it is nice that it says up to 1 target creature. Meager Meal is okay. I don't mind that as a 1 mana thing that I could do. But a 4 mana 4/3 with menace, I don't think that's good at all. And I guess he's a legendary, so you're not casting it down, but I'm also not casting it down because I'm not really worried about it. It does have menace. It is taking 4 life chunks out of you every time it hits. I just don't. I think it's slow. I think it's relatively bad. It does give you some form of card advantage to be able to play this Meager Meal part early and then cast the Golem later. But yeah. No, we're not gonna play that one. It gets like a 2.8, and we're on to our next page. Great Fierce Bee, cute. A bee gets 2/2, sure. Great Fierce Bee is 2 and a black for a 2/2 insect with flying, and whenever 1 or more other creatures die, you scry 1. Yeah, I mean that's fine, but it's not. It's not as good as as the Mortician's Beetle. It's not as good as a Gixian Infiltrator that are wanting things to be sacrificed. I guess that's different than creatures dying, and also those are more talking about your creatures dying or sacrificing permanents of your own, and this just says other creature dies. So if you're using a bunch of removal on your opponent's creatures, then you still get to scry. Maybe you find even more removal with those scries. This thing is a Windrake otherwise, a 3 mana 2/2. Like we said before, I don't love that, but I think this ability is not terrible. It's not much, but it's not terrible. I don't mind this at all. I wouldn't go into my Pauper deck. I think this could be a solid limited piece. It's just something that chips away at your opponent's life total while also giving you pretty sustained card advantage over the course of a game if it sticks around. I can give this like a 3. Yeah, I think I'd give it a 3. Haunt of the Dead Marshes, not Marches. Haunt of the Dead Marshes is a single black mana for a 1/1 Nightmare Elf, and when this creature enters, you scry 1. You can pay 2 and a black to return this card from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. Activate only if you control a legendary creature. So again, when we first saw this card, there weren't any legendary creatures at common. That's not exactly true, but close enough. None that were ever playable in Pauper that would make a difference. So essentially no legendary creatures in common, and now they are, pardon the pun, relatively common. So it's a 1/1 that can bring itself back, and every time it brings itself back, it's scrying 1. Okay. You pair this with a Carrion Feeder. Carrion Feeder sacrifices this. Carrion Feeder gets bigger. This returns to the battlefield. You sack it again. But what's the black creature? What's the black legend that you're playing in that deck? A Rokisaki? Probably not, because you don't want to ninjutsu out your Carrion Feeder. That's got all the counters on it. So it doesn't really go in that deck. And if it doesn't go in that deck, what deck does it go into? Because I mean, what are the other black legendary creatures that you want to play in Pauper? I don't think there are. I mean, I know there are other options. I just think all those options are terrible from the ones that I've seen. And this golem that we got on the last page is not changing my mind of bad legendary creatures. So I think this is ultimately just not particularly great. I'd give it a 2. I'd just give it a 2. Night's Whisper is a really good card, more of a commander piece, but we've seen it in a lot of different sets. But it also got a Lord of the Rings version for Commander. Then it was in the Sam and Frodo food deck, and so now we're getting a reprint of that for the Hobbit Eternal set. Night's Whisper, if you haven't seen it before, is 1 and a black for a sorcery. You draw 2 cards and you lose 2 life. Solid stuff. 2 mana to draw 2 cards. I don't care about losing the 2 life at that point. The card advantage is really good in black. Even so, this doesn't actually see play in Pauper, and not much anyway. I mean, I guess it's seen a touch of play because it is just a generally good card, but it usually doesn't synergize enough with the rest of your deck. And there's enough cards out there that can synergize quite well with your deck and ends up being a more useful piece. A Fanatical Offering will often be better than a Night's Whisper because you don't mind sacrificing a thing. In fact, you might even want to sacrifice a thing if it's like an Eager Wellspring. You're drawing 2 cards and you're putting a map token on the table. All these things are good. And if you replace that with a Night's Whisper, yeah, I guess you still drew 2 cards, but I lost 2 life and I had to do it at sorcery speed. And Fanatical Offering says I can just do better than that. Like, yeah, you'll sacrifice a thing, but again, if you sacrifice an Eager Wellspring, you're drawing 3 cards and making a map token. So Night's Whisper doesn't quite make the cut in Pauper, but it still sees a little play here and there occasionally. I can go for I guess I'll go for a straight 5 on this one. But I think if you want a Night's Whisper, I don't necessarily want the one with Frodo on it. I kind of like this one with the Vraska. That's a little bit more my speed. Next is Rage into the Valley, which is 2 and a black for a sorcery. You draw a card and lose 1 life. Hey, that's even worse than a Night's Whisper. What else does it do? Amass Goblins 2. I guess this is the other big mechanic of the set. They brought Amass back. We had Amass Zombies first, and that was not a Lord of the Rings set, but we had Amass Zombies, which was just called Amass. And then in Lord of the Rings Tales of Middle-earth, we got Amass Orcs, and we now can make an orc army. And now we get Amass Goblins here because goblins are more prominent in The Hobbit than orcs are. Orcs kind of come later. But Amass Goblin says put 2 +1/+1 counters on an army you control. It's also a goblin. If you don't control an army, create a 0/0 black goblin army token first. So you this is essentially a 3-mana draw a card, lose a life, and get a 2/2. I don't know, not terrible. And if you already have one of these armies out there, whether it's an orc army or a goblin army or a zombie army, it gets all the creature types as you cast amass thing. So if you just cast this one, it's only a goblin. But if you then amass orcs one, you'd put the +1/+1 encounter on your goblin army, but now your goblin army is now a 3/3 goblin orc army. and then the same thing with zombies. As you amass, they just keep gaining the creature types that they didn't have before. But this one is just amass goblins. It probably doesn't end up being very good. I think you prefer this to be on a body that's a card. You want the card body, because if you are playing this, it's probably something that's maybe a little bit more. Not that you're playing this in a reanimator deck exactly, but you kind of want the option to be able to get it back. Or in something like Dredge, you like the option of being able to bring it back to your hand, and that's not going to happen as much with a sorcery. So you're drawing a card, you're losing a life, you're amassing goblins too. I mean, those are all good things. You don't mind that for 3 mana, I would say. And there are even some decks that say, hey, I actually prefer to have instants and sorceries. You know, whether it's a magecraft kind of deck or whether it's a prowess kind of deck. Some decks really like having these kinds of cards. And it's nice that this kind of card, because if you're playing that, you're probably playing something that doesn't play a lot of creatures. So it's nice to have sorceries and instant speed things that can make creatures while also counting as an instant or sorcery. It's kind of a toss-up, I guess. I think I'd prefer to just have the creature be on an actual card, and then have an inner trigger of drawing a card and losing a life, which we have. We have what is it? Dusk Legion Zealot, Dusk something Zealot. Anyway, I think for a score, I'll go for like a 2.7. I'll go for a 3. Just at that point, I'll go for a 3. Ravening Warg is 1 and a black for a 2/2 wolf with Death Touch. Another bear. I know it's a wolf, but another bear. It's also got Ferocious. Whenever this creature attacks while you control a creature with power 4 or greater, you gain 2 life. It's kind of fun. If I had an Ajani's Pridemate in this format, which I do not, then it might be kind of cool to be able to attack in, and my Pridemate, and I would gain the life, and my Pridemate gets bigger. Maybe I've even made my Pridemate into a 4-power creature from other things with life gain, and now I'm getting the Ferocious triggers on this too. There are the Ferocious triggers for this, and that's gaining me life that's also working for the Pridemate kind of thing. That could be cool. Pridemate's not in the format. Other cards are, but Pest Mascot could certainly work with this. It could, but it's just slower. Ravening Warg's okay. 2/2 Death Touch. That's potentially gaining you life each turn it comes into play, or each turn it attacks. And your opponent now has to do the mental math in their head of, is it worth it for me to block this guy knowing that my creature will die because this thing has Death Touch, but I know that I'm slowing them down from gaining the 2 life every turn? Or should I just take this 2 damage and get closer to death myself? That's a tough choice for the opponent at some point, and I do like that. Do I like it enough to give it a good score? 2.9. Reverent Howl is 2 and a black for an instant. Choose 1. Target player draws 2 cards and loses 2 life. Feel like we just saw that really like just a little bit earlier, I mean, this is from the Eternal set. This is from the Standard set. So those are 2 different things, to be fair. So choose 1. Target player draws 2 cards and loses 2 life, or target creature gets +2/+2 and gains lifelink until end of turn. I think this is actually pretty interesting. This costs more than you want to do. Again, we just saw a Night's Whisper that does this, and in the Pauper format, where both of these cards are legal, I think I'd probably go for the Night's Whisper still most of the time. But there are some reasons that you wouldn't. One of them is this is instant speed. Instant speed's really good. Like, I can hold up. The idea that you can hold this card up in your hand. Hold up mana to be able to cast this card in your opponent's turn. And you get to choose. Maybe your opponent goes, ooh, you know, they've held up mana. Maybe they have a combat trick, which you do, because this is also a combat trick, as we saw with the +2/+2 and lifelink. Maybe I shouldn't swing in, because, you know, they could have a combat trick. They could blow me out. That wouldn't feel really good at all. So I'm just to be safe. I'm not gonna swing in. I'm not gonna take that bait, right? Like, yeah, you're smart. You're not gonna take that bait. Okay, at the end of the turn, I'll just draw 2 cards. Great. And now I have more card advantage, and I can potentially do more things on my turn. Fantastic. That's a great outcome. Or the opponent swings in, and you go, okay, fine. I'll use my combat trick. I'll gain some life and get a 2/2, or and get +2/+2 on my guy. Or you can use this offensively too. That you want to draw. That you draw 2 cards on your turn if you really need them. If you need to turn through your deck, sure. Or you're swinging in with a big guy. And hey, what if that guy had +2/+2 and lifelink on him as well? These are great things. 3 mana's more than I want to pay for this, but having the modality of having either of those choices, I do love that. Really versatile card. Really good card. How good is it in the Pauper format? That's the real question. What deck does this go in? I'm not sure. I'm not sure what deck actually really wants this. I could see it being cool in Mono Black Sacrifice. What if I made my Carrion Feeder into a 10/10? Now my 10/10 has lifelink that turn. Sweet. And turns into a 12/12. Great. I gained 12 life. Sweet. Or you know, I can just draw a couple more cards, put down some more Nezumi Link Breakers and, you know, Infestation Sages, and sacrifice even more stuff. That's not bad either. And if you have multiple copies of this card in your deck, then you don't mind losing the couple life from drawing the couple cards, because then you can gain it back by getting the life link on a different thing. It is really versatile and really cool. I just don't know how really good it is when we're talking about a Pauper meta. And so I'm gonna hedge my bets a little bit, and I'm gonna give it a 4.5. But I do like this card. I think this is the second card I'm gonna write down as a card that I like, even if I don't know if it'll actually have a real impact in the Pauper format. Reverent Howl. Sure. I'll buy a playset of that for fun. Stir Up Trouble. That's what we do here. Pay a black mana for a sorcery as an additional cost to cast this spell. You sacrifice an artifact or creature, or pay 4, and you destroy target creature. We've gotten so many of these, and I think we've just gotten better ones. Do we have... Eaten Alive is exile, but is Eaten Alive... Yeah, Eaten Alive's common. So this has to pay. It has to be sacking a creature, though, not a creature or artifact. And the 4 now is a 3 and a black. And it tries to say, oh, but it could be a planeswalker, which doesn't matter to us. What about something like Worthy Cost? Worthy Cost is the same thing, but it doesn't give you the option to pay more. I'm still pretty sure we've gotten cards that more or less have this exact same line of text. I don't hate it. And especially if you're in some kind of deck that's playing a lot of tokens, if you're in like the Cauldron Familiar black food deck, you know, this is a way of sacrificing your food and getting some removal at the same time. Like, there's something kind of cool about it, but I don't think it does enough. Maybe if it was instant speed. If it was instant speed, I think this would be good enough. But at sorcery speed, I'm just not sure it is. Could be a really cheap way to get rid of creature, though. Something to consider. I think this card... I think I'd still probably prefer the ones that exile. I don't know. Being able to sacrifice my artifacts for it is really useful, though. I'll go for a 3.7. How about that? Next is Stony Voiced Goblins. 1 and a black for a 1/1 Goblin Bard, and whenever this creature enters, each opponent discards a card. We've, you know, How many of these do we have? Virus Beetle, probably one of the best ones, being an artifact. We have Burglar Rats, one of the originals. Corrupt Court Official, also one of the originals from Portal 3 Kingdoms, and then it showed up in Streets of New Capenna. We got a ton of these guys. These 1/1 guys that come down and force an opponent to discard a card. This one is pretty good from a creature type standpoint. Goblin is a great creature type for a lot of different formats. Pauper is in that conversation, but not really in black. Bard doesn't really matter all that much. But I think again, if I'm going for one of these, I want the Virus Beetle because it's the artifact, or I want the Skullcap Snail, which exiles opponent exiles a card from their hand instead of discards a card from their hand. I would prefer that. So this doesn't quite make it. Maybe it's the third best one. Maybe it's even the fourth best one. Rat or the human that the court official is. Those could be better creature types too. So yeah, it's fine. You should probably play every copy you see in limited. Every time you draft. This was never a bad draft card to have, I would think. Just making your opponent go down on resources is usually a good strategy. I'll give it a 2.9. Yeah. Like Virus Beetle's like a 5. So this deserves better than that. This gets like a 3.9 then. We'll go up to 3.9, but Virus Beetle being an artifact makes a huge difference to a card like this, and this one just doesn't quite do it. Troll of Khazad-dûm. Again, this is probably the second best card in the entire Hobbit set, Eternal and Standard combined. Because this is a card that we've gotten before, has seen a ton of play, banned in Legacy. That's wild. But this card is really strong. Really strong. The loops, and not loops exactly, but the shenanigans you can do by swamp cycling this on turn 1 and playing Exhume on turn 2. Your opponent doesn't have anything in their graveyard. You get to bring a 6/5 with... I guess we'll read the card first. 5 and a black for a 6/5 troll. This creature can't be blocked except by 3 or more creatures, and it swamp cycles for 1. So you discard, search your library for a swamp, any swamp, and reveal it, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. Awesome. Like these. How many times can I say these cards are so good? I guess I'll say it at least one more time, and then we have two more coming later, so we'll say this a couple more times. But Troll of Khazad-dûm is so good. The way that it can work with some reanimator targets. This is a fantastic card in Dredge. This is a fantastic card in most black decks because it is just able to search up a swamp when you need one, and especially if you're playing something that splashes black or black splashing another color. This thing being able to get those tapped duels with the land types are really, really useful. Troll of Khazad-dûm is like a 7.9. It's not nearly as good as the Lorien Revealed, in my opinion. Even if I like this card more and I'd play this card more than the Lorien Revealed, I think Lorien Revealed is still just the better one of these. But this one's up there. In fact, I'll go up to an 8. It's Troll of Khazad-dûm, really good card, and not as expensive. 77 cents. I've seen this higher. I've seen this be a couple bucks. And then if you want the Scrolls version, it's $5. So, but if this gets down to like 50 cents, less than 50 cents with this new printing, just buy a bunch of copies. You'll use them. I promise you. All right, another big sip. Good stuff. Battle-Scarred Goblin is 1 in a red for a 2/2 Goblin Warrior. Whenever this creature becomes blocked, it deals 1 damage to each creature blocking it. I think that's cute. I think that's cute text. We've seen it before. It was in the original Lord of the Rings set. But it's back now for the Eternal set, and I think it's kind of fine. It's a little bit like Bushido. It's a little bit like flanking. It's probably a little bit more like flanking than it is like Bushido, because flanking would happen to each creature blocking it, giving them the -1/-1. It's not as good as flanking, but still dealing a damage to each creature blocking it. Your opponent's probably not going to block this with multiple creatures because it would be really bad for them. But your opponent can't just block. Your opponent can't block this with 1/1s. Your opponent can't block this with anything with 1 toughness, because this would just kill it in the same way that flanking would just kill it. That's really cool. They can't. I mean, they can chump block with 1/1s, but you could not put 2 1/1s and have them block this thing, because both the 1/1s would die when this becomes blocked, and then this thing would now be two toughness against no power coming back at it. That part's cool. Like, really cool for the early game. But after turn 3, this loses pretty much all of its value, and that's kind of a bummer. I suppose it still does take out 3 toughness dudes that block it. That's cool. It's cool. It's not quite good enough, though. It hasn't seen any play before. I don't think it'll see any more play now. In fact, I'm pretty darn positive about that. But, if a mono red goblins deck came out, I think you might take a look at him. Put a flyer out there. Try one. Flyer isn't like take a chance on it, not because it flies. I'll go for a 2.7 on this. I kind of dig it. Dory, Bearer of Friends, is 2 and a red for a 3/2 legendary creature, dwarf warrior. It's got trample, and when he enters, you create a treasure token. It's not terrible. Legendary creature, so it can't be cast down. 3/2 trample for 3 is a pretty decent rate. Creating a treasure token when it comes into play, not even a tap treasure token, just creates a treasure token. So it's kind of like a jewel thief. Jewel thief's in green, but this is, the green one's obviously better. Like, this is the jewel thief is just better. A 3 mana for a 3/3 with vigilance and trample, and it makes a treasure token when it comes into play. That's why this gets played in Pauper, and I don't think this will. But it's in a different color, something to consider. But I would also consider that if you are playing this, you're probably playing this in like a Gruul ramp deck, and that's a deck that's playing red. So it's a deck that might also consider this, but you just have a better option available to you than this. Dory's okay. He is legendary, so you can cast down a Jewel Thief. You can't cast down Dory. I suppose that is something, a bit of a point in its favor. But from a score perspective, I think you can go for a 3.3 and say, it's close, but it's not quite there. Fire of Orthanc is 3 and a red for a sorcery. Destroy target artifact or land. Creatures without flying can't block this turn. That's fun. 4 mana is a little bit more than you want to spend, but it is kind of smashing a couple spells together that red likes to do. We've seen this one before. It doesn't see a whole lot of play. We do have a Ponza deck in the format, and it's in these colors, and it could play this, and maybe somebody's even tried it. I do like creatures without flying can't block this turn. Just being able to take some of their resources out and alpha strike them. Okay. The problem with this, and the problem with a lot of cards that try this, where they're like, oh, what if we smash 2 spells together? We've discussed this on the channel before, like a Lightning Helix. But a Lightning Helix is always good. Lightning Helix, you will always want both of those things. Gaining life and doing damage. You're going to be happy when both of those things happen. This, you might just need to take out the land and not have the creatures to swing in to take advantage of them not being able to block. They might not have any creatures up to be able to block with, so that this now feels a little pointless too. So you're just paying more for the Stone Rain. They might... you don't have any creatures. They don't have any creatures. They don't have any creatures that are untapped and ready to block. I guess those are the scenarios out there. But then other times, what if? Oh, okay. So I'm using this ability to not make any of their creatures block, and I can swing in for the Alpha Strike and kill them. I didn't need the land. I didn't need the land destruction. I just needed to have that other part. Like, I just want I forgot what the spell is that stops your opponents from blocking with any ground creatures that turn. But there are plenty of spells that do that. So there are many times where I don't get the full value of this card when I'm playing it. And that's what I generally don't like about this. Like, I like a modal card that says choose one of the other. And then I feel like those are generally priced in a way that I can choose one or the other and not feel bad about it. But when I'm paying 4 mana for a Stone Rain, I want my Stone Rain to be better than just a Stone Rain. And this one isn't always better than a Stone Rain. And that makes it worse than a Stone Rain because it costs more. We've seen it. Hasn't seen a ton of play. Could see play. Maybe not quite good enough for it. I'll go with a 3.6. Goblin Town Flunkies is 1 and a red for a 1/1 Goblin Soldier with haste. When this creature enters, you amass Goblins 1. Cute. 2 bodies on the table for 2 mana. One of them has haste. Sure. Impact Tremors. Think about that. Raphael Tough Turtle. I think you'd probably still end up playing like the mechanized ninja thing. Mechanized Ninja Cavalry. Same. Maybe not. I don't know. This 1 in a red, you're getting a 1/1 and making another 1/1. But these are both artifacts, and that's probably going to help you a little bit more when you're playing something with like refurbished familiars or affinity shells, that kind of stuff. I think having 2 artifacts on the table is probably better than having 2 goblins on the table, even if this one does have haste, so it is giving you a little something more. Something to consider though. Not the worst card I've seen. I can go as high as a 3.8, maybe. No, it can't. It shouldn't get that high. It is 2 bodies, but it's still kind of just. It is kind of just a grizzly bear. 3.4. Gundabad Opportunist, 3 and a red. Oof. 3 and a red for a 4/2 Goblin Rogue until. Or when this creature enters, exile the top card of your library until the end of your next turn. You may play that card. Too normal. 4 mana for a 4/2 is not the best rate in the world. And you get to exile the top card and play it until the end of your next turn. So you do get some time to cast that card. But I want more out of it. And I'm not getting enough out of it. I need this thing to have first strike on my turn or something like that, and it not having that makes it a little too generic and a little too bad for me. I'll go with a 2.3. Improvised Club is a card we've had before. 1 and a red for an instant. As an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice an artifact or creature. Improvised Club deals 4 damage to any target. It's kind of not bad, but it is kind of like some of the other cards we mentioned before. That black card that we saw that wants you to sacrifice a creature or artifact, and that just destroyed target creature. So it's probably better, cost less. But that was sorcery speed. This is instant speed. That does make a difference. You'll probably have some things to be able to sacrifice an artifact or creature. That's not the hardest thing to do in red. Blood tokens and things like that. But we've had it in the format and it's really seen no play. So I don't foresee it seeing any more play at this point. I think you got to go with a solid like 3.6, but doesn't hit the decks. Iron Hill's Stalwart is 4 and a red for a 4/5 Dwarf Warrior with reach and trample. And when this creature enters, you attach target equipment you control to up to 1 target creature you control. I do like that ability. Attach target equipment you control to up to 1 target creature you control. It doesn't have to be this guy. It could be this guy. If you want it to be this guy, that's fine. But this guy can come in and attach a really expensive equipment or equipment with a really expensive equip cost to one of your other creatures that doesn't have summoning sickness, and that creature can swing in for big damage that turn. And now you've got this 4/5 reach guy that can block the next turn. And then your next turn, your opponent's next turn, and then your next turn, now you've got a 4/5 that can swing in with trample. That's okay. That is, I generally do not like creatures with reach and trample because I think they are those are just completely non-synergistic keywords. Reach is virtually always, and I say that because there's Dulcim like in the format, not in our format, but in all of Magic. I mean that one matters about swinging in with guys with reach, but almost always reach is a defensive ability, and always trample is an offensive ability. Can't think of anything that cares about trample when you're on defense. I guess I guess ram through. Ram through, not necessarily on defense, but you don't have to be attacking for trample to matter when you're playing with ram through. So almost always trample is an offensive ability, and almost always reach is a defensive ability. And so those two things, I feel like, I wish I just had more on one or more on the other. Having that kind of split usefulness, that all arounder feel, isn't actually all that great for our purposes here. But I like the play pattern. I like the sequencing that you can do with this with the equipment stuff. Or the other thing, maybe the equipment that you put onto it, maybe it's an equipment that you put onto this guy, maybe that gives it haste. If the equipment gives it haste, now you can swing in with your trampoline guy on turn one. You don't have to care about the not turn one, but on the turn it comes into play. You don't have to care about it having reach anymore. It's fine. I've got a big trample haste. That's great. Or maybe it gives your creature vigilance, and now I'm getting having all three of those keywords. Now I get to use the trample on offense, but vigilance lets me also use the reach on defense. So I'm kind of getting all of it now. That feels great. So if you get the right equipment on this, that could be really useful. This I like it. I like it. Here's the real problem. It costs 5 mana. So despite all that talk, pretty unplayable garbage. I'm sorry. I know I feel like I gassed this card up in a way to now just tell you, no, I think this card sucks. But I do think this card sucks. It's 5 mana. You're not going to play this in Pauper. This will be limited. This will be a limited bomb. But outside of limited, no. It's like a 2.4. I like it though. It's garbage, but I like it, which describes many things, honestly. Oin the Brave is 1 and a red. I had a friend today, and I hope he's watching. I know he's not, but I hope he's watching. Who called called this Owen, which I mean it is an O and then an IN, but it's absolutely Oin. Oin the Brave is 1 and a red for a 1/3 legendary creature dwarf warrior. He also called Glowin, which is fantastic. I really loved it. I I kind of laughed right in his face. I'm a bad friend. Owen and Glowin. Oin the Brave is 1 and a red for a 1/3 legendary creature dwarf warrior with storied. If you control 3 or more artifacts, legendaries, and/or sagas, you have an enduring story for the rest of the game. As long as you have an enduring story, Oin gets +1/+0 and has haste, and you can pay 1, tap, and discard a card to draw a card. All right, let's talk about this without having to kind of block it with the storied part here. Having a 2 mana 1/3 that you have to pay to rummage, not even loot. I mean, we are in red, so it makes sense that we're rummaging, but having to discard the card first and then drawing a card, generally not great. Sometimes in the Pauper format, it's not the worst thing because you can do it with Sneaky Snacker, put a Sneaky Snacker in the bin, but you're not drawing 2, so you're not guaranteeing that you get the Sneaky Snacker out that turn. That part I'm not excited about, and I'm really not excited about having to pay the mana and tapping the creature to do that. That's not great. But 2 mana 1/3 is a relatively decent rate, not the best rate, but it's a decent rate. And then if you have an enduring story, which as we mentioned before, pretty easy to do with artifact tokens. You know, if you're in like a Rakdos deck and you put down a Blood Fountain on turn 1 and you play this on turn 2, you already have an enduring story. You just did it. Took you nothing. So easy. But now turn 2, this guy comes down as a 2/3 with haste. Okay. I don't love that its activated ability has to tap itself, but I gave it I mean, if you give it haste, then you can tap it the turn it comes into play. But giving it the power boost, I want to now swing in with this. So I can't swing in and do the rummage. I just think it's kind of lame. Like, this just isn't good enough. It has the bones of a good card, but it just doesn't have meat to make it a good card. You know, that's maybe a disturbing way to call out that card. But I don't particularly like this. I'm gonna give it a 2.3. It probably deserves more than that, but I think this card ultimately is a trap in that the way that it makes you think, oh, maybe this is kind of good, and then you realize, oh, no, this is actually not good. It's not useful in any of the ways that I need it to be useful, even though it feels like it should. Oliphant, hey, we get to do it again. Oliphant's 5 and a red for a 6/4 elephant with trample. Whenever this creature attacks another target creature you control, gets +2/+0 and gains trample until end of turn. And it has mountain cycling for 1. Discard this card, search your library for a mountain card, reveal it, put it in your hand, and then shuffle. Hey, did I mention these cards are really good? These cards are really good. And this one is one of the cheaper ones, but it's also probably one of the better ones. It's probably the 4th best one. And we'll see the 3rd best one when we get to the green cards. But this one's still really good. It's better than the Eagles pretty much all day. The band and the card. But Oliphant is fine. It's more than fine. It's a great card. I don't mind a 6/4 that tramples in. Like, that's just a better craw worm. And when this creature attacks another target creature, can get +2/+0 and trample. Cool. I can swing in with more stuff. I can do more damage. I like this as a creature. But even if you never play the creature part, if you never touch the creature part, if the creature part wasn't even there, this would still be a great card in mana fixing you in the Pauper format. It's so good at that. Incredible card. And even if you didn't play it as a creature, in dredge decks, it still can be really useful to cycle this guy, put a creature in your graveyard, which your Lotleth Giant is going to love. And dredge decks are splashing more red these days. Even the spy versions are splashing red sometimes to be able to get access to some of these really useful cards that red can provide. And an Oliphant is a great way of finding your mountain swamp or your mountain, your wooded ridgeline, I think is the mountain forest version. And finding those cards to put those on the table, that's great. That's... Oliphant's really good. It's like a... So if Lorien Revealed's like a 9.2 and Troll of Khazad-dûm is like a 8, I think this is closer to like a 7.5. Yeah, I think 7.5. And then what did I give the Eagles? Like a 6? I think that's about right. And then when we get to the Generosent, Generosent will probably be a little bit better than this, but it's this and the Generosent I think are closer to each other than the other ones are. That might not be true because of the decks that Generosent can go into. We'll talk about it. Next up is Olog High Crusher, which is 3 and a red for a 4/4 troll soldier with trample. This creature can't block unless you control a goblin or orc. Yeah, I don't love it. 4 mana, 4/4 trample. It feels like just about on rate, so it having a drawback feels punitive in a way that I don't need it to be. I mean, maybe this is just on rate for green, and like a 4 mana 4/4 trample is on rate in green, so a 4 mana 4/4 trample in red needs to be a little bit worse. I could see that being the thinking for that R&D is doing. But it's bad. It's just a bad card for the Pauper format. In limited, you can probably make this work because there's plenty of goblins in the format, especially if you're playing red and or black. You will be able to put some goblins on the table, and then you can swing in with this guy. Although I guess you're not doing it in limited because I'm just noticing this is part of the Eternal set, so this is part of Lord of the Rings, Tales of Middle-earth, which makes more sense. I think if this was in standard, it wouldn't have the orc part, but having orc, that does 100% make a lot more sense. This card was bad then, still bad now. It gets a 2. Better than 2. 2.2. 2.2, yeah. Pinecone Strike is kind of a cool card. 1 and a red for an instant. Choose one or both. I like that. Either Pinecone Strike deals 3 damage to target creature. If that creature would die this turn, exile it instead. That's pretty cool. And or destroy target artifact token. I wish it didn't say token, but even though it does, that's still not bad. This can hit a lot of things. 2 mana, instant speed, Suplex. Think about it that way. Suplex is also, hey, do 3 damage to a creature. If it dies, you exile it. Pretty sure. I know it exiles the artifact is the other part, but suplex. Yeah, if that creature dies this turn, exile it instead. But this is a sorcery. This gets played a lot. This gets played in a lot of sideboards, because mostly for the exile target artifact part, which is going to make this card, Pinecone Strike, noticeably worse. But it's instant speed. It's instant speed, deals 3 damage, can exile a creature that dies. That's you're not going to hate that. You might pay an extra mana to just make sure that Sneaky Snacker never comes back. You're going to feel good about that, especially at instant speed. Destroying target artifact token. Hey, there are all sorts of artifact tokens that show up in this format. Blood tokens, clue tokens, food tokens, treasure tokens, but they can just sacrifice the treasures in response. But I guess you are forcing them to sacrifice the treasures in response. So, yeah, I guess you count those too. Any sort of artifact creature tokens that show up can also be destroyed with this too. Like there's stuff. Thopter tokens, get destroyed by this. There is certainly stuff that you can hit with the Pinecone Strike. And then the creature part's always going to be useful. Unless they have just giant dudes. But even then, still being able to do 3 damage. Maybe you chump block enough to chip them down to 3 toughness, and you can deal 3 more damage with this thing and exile them. Pinecone Strike's a good card. It's probably the third it's definitely the third card I'm going to write down. It's probably the third best card we've really seen for that's new. But I think there will be a little bit of consideration for this. Somebody will try it out in a couple decks, and they'll go, this is fine, but it's not as good as Suplex. It doesn't work in as many things that Suplex does, because Suplex is just really good when you're going up against Affinity and Orzhov Blade that plays those bridges. Anything that's playing the bridges, you're going to really like having Suplex over Pinecone Strike. But I think there will be some decks where you'll go, man, Pinecone Strike actually did all right, especially if Sneaky Snacker continues to be in this format. I think you'll find cards like Pinecone Strike might get a little bit more play, knowing that we really need to find ways of killing, not just killing, but exiling Sneaky Snacker from our games. And you might find that a card like this will see a little bit more play because of that. So I'm going to grab 4 copies just in case. But I don't think this will have a real impact on Pauper. But of the cards we've seen, it probably will have one of the higher impacts. Next is Ragged Short Spear, 1 in a red for an artifact equipment. When this equipment enters, you may discard a card. If you do, draw 2 cards. Okay, we've seen that do well before. Equipped creature gets +2/+0, and it equips for 3. I think it's just too expensive. It does okay, but think about the competition. Think about all the cards that are a discard 1, draw 2. And you really see how this is a long road for this card to be even considered as playable. Is this card better than called Bitter Reunion? Yeah, it's Bitter Reunion, right? Bitter. Oh, not there. What am I doing? Bitter Revelation? No, Bitter Reunion. Yeah, Bitter Reunion. Is it better than Bitter Reunion? Enchantment that when it enters, you discard a card, draw 2 cards, and you can pay 1 sack to give all your creatures haste. I don't think it's better than this. I think this is the better card than Ragged Short Spear. Is it better than Melded Moxite? This is also an artifact. Like this, being an artifact equipment, this is a little bit more equivalent. Same mana cost. When this enters, you discard a card. If you do, draw 2 cards. Later, you can sacrifice this for 3 mana and make a tapped colorless robot artifact creature token. So you're potentially getting a decent-sized guy. Now, this is 5 mana altogether, and this just kind of hangs out on your board. This is probably pretty close to that. This is also 2 mana here and 3 mana here, so that is 5 mana in a way. And you are putting +2 power on another guy. This is pretty equivalent. I think you can start to have an argument that Ragged Short Spear or Melded Moxite, maybe one goes better in your deck than the other one. Maybe. I think I'd still probably go with the Melded Moxite. I like having the dude, especially the dude that I can make at instant speed. Yes, he's tapped, but I can at least make it instant speed on the end of my opponent's turn, and then have a 2/2 robot for be able to swing in for the next turn. I think I'd probably still go with Melded Moxite, and then you have to consider all the even better ones than the ones I just brought up. Those are like the ones that are slightly fringe in the format right now, see a little bit of play for different reasons. But then, is this better than Grab the Prize? Absolutely not. Is this better than the plot one? Forgot the name of it, but the Outlaws of Thunder Junction one that you can plot? Absolutely not. So, this is maybe the fifth or sixth best one of these at that point. And how many of those effects do you need? And again, let me remind you, Sneaky Snacker is kind of being looked at right now as a card that might get banned out of the format. And if that gets banned out of the format, it doesn't completely invalidate all of these kinds of cards, but it makes these cards less viable in a way that you're only going to use the best ones, and even then only sometimes. And so it makes a card like this pretty much completely unplayable. If Sneaky Snacker wasn't in the format, I do not think we would care about Ragged Short Spear at all. But we have to have this conversation because Sneaky Snacker is in the format. So while it is in the format, you can make an argument. Okay, I can play I can get a Sneaky Snacker back on the battlefield with this, and then the next turn I could equip this to the Sneaky Snacker, and now I have a 4/1 in the air. That's a pretty good argument. Is it a better argument than the Melded Moxite? That's a choice I think you would have to make. This could see some play. I'm not writing this one down because I don't have any Sneaky Snacker decks right now, and I don't think I'm going to. Not because it might get banned, but it's been in the format for a while now, and I just still haven't made a Sneaky Snacker deck. I just don't think it's going to happen. But if I did have a Sneaky Snacker deck, I'd probably just end up picking a couple copies up. I guess I do have to write this down at least when I have to talk about the most interesting Pauper cards, so I will write down Ragged Short Spear. But I'm not buying any copies. I'll probably get one at pre-release, one or two, and then we'll figure it out from there. Smaug's Fury is 1 and a red for an instant. Target creature gets +3/+0 and gains reach and first strike until end of turn. Okay, that's actually a pretty decent suite of abilities. You're I don't know why Smaug's Fury gives you reach and first strike. It feels like that should be the guy with the arrow. What's his name? Not Bjorn. Bjorn's the bear guy, right? Whoever the human guy is who shoots Smaug with the arrow, like that kills Smaug. That's the one you want. That goes back to the white card that we saw that hits 5 on a tapped creature. Why would Smaug give you reach? I mean, he flies, so I guess that gives him reach, but wouldn't I just give my creature flying instead? I guess red doesn't do that. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The point here is 2 mana for a really good combat trick. I think this is a really good combat trick. Reach and first strike are great defensive abilities to put onto a creature. And then +3/+0 works fantastic with the first strike as well to make sure that your creature lives and their creature dies. 2 mana is not the worst thing in the world to pay for this kind of ability. And you can use this on offense too, even though reach wouldn't do anything for the creature. Again, unless you're in commander with like Dalsum or something. But Dalsum is Selesnya, so you wouldn't even be able to do that. But yeah, it still works as just a sure strike? I think it is. Sure strike, yeah, it's just a sure. It's a better sure strike. It's a strictly better sure strike. So that's cool. I like this. This is not a. It's not going to see play in Pauper. I can kind of guarantee that. But this is a really good combat trick. Will be really good in limited, and will be a really good cube card if you want a card that is just slightly better than a sure strike. I think this is one to look out for. I guess I'm gonna write this one down. 2 in a row? What are we doing here? Smaug's Fury. Kind of cool. I'll pick up a couple copies. Not for the Pauper format. I think when you're talking strictly Pauper, this goes as like a 3, maybe a 3.1. But just as a good card generally that you might play in lots of different formats, yeah, maybe. Smaug the Great Calamity has, I think, maybe the best art in the entire set. Even better than rares and mythics and all those other cards. I think this is just the best art in the set. Look at this. Just look at this thing. Chris Cold. Damn. It looks so good. But is the card any good? Let's see. Smaug the Great Calamity is 5 and double red for a 5/5 flying legendary dragon. So it is 5 toughness. Again, that's the reference I was talking about with the the white card that deals 5 damage to a tap creature. This is the Smaug I was talking about. You can kill Smaug with the card that's about killing Smaug. So generally decent, 5/5 flying red dragon. Though we see those a lot in a lot of different contexts. 7 mana is more than we pay for that. I think 6 is kind of the going rate, but this guy has an adventure side. So let's see if that helps this out at all. Spew Flame for 4 and a red is a sorcery adventure, and Spew Flame deals 5 damage to target creature. That's also kind of interesting. I don't know if it's good, but it is interesting. Again, we mentioned it earlier. 5 is a real threshold when it comes to damage. 5 can take out lots of things that we're worried about. Now, if I'm paying 5 mana to deal 5 damage at sorcery speed, are you paying an extra 2 mana to be able to pay the ward cost and take out the Tolarian Terror? Probably not, because if you had the 2 extra mana, you might just decide to play Smaug instead and get the 5/5 flyer and then try to race your opponent. So I don't know how much use the adventure part is giving you. Yeah, you're not only going to be able to take out Tolarian Terrors with this. Gurmag Angler, Cryptic Serpent, Boulder Branch Golem. There are other ones that will be able to be taken out by the Spew Flame part, and that's okay. Like that, maybe you'll get the use out of that, but I think these are both just too expensive. If Spew Flame could be 4 mana, if Smaug could be 6 mana, if both of those things could be true, I think this could be a pretty solid card. Maybe still too expensive on both sides. From a, hey, this is the Pauper format, things are relatively cheap here. The double pips here of Smaug make it unlikely to show up in like a Monstertron list. I don't know if it would have anyway, but it definitely won't if you need to have 2 red pips in a deck that mainly just splashes a little bit of green or the tiniest bit of blue or the tiniest bit of red. Making double red is not as easy to do. It's tough. I don't think ultimately this is a card that shows up in Pauper. And it makes me sad because I really want to play with it. Look at that art. I'm going to get a copy just for the art. So I guess I will write it down. But I'm going to have to put like a little paintbrush icon or something next to it to say like, hey, you're only buying it for the art. Great Calamity. He might be a great Calamity, but he is not a great card. I think ultimately I got to go for a 3.8. Kind of hurts me a little bit. Smite the Deathless is 1 in a red for an instant. Smite the Deathless deals 3 damage to target creature. That creature loses indestructible until end of turn. If that creature would die this turn, exile it instead. That's cute. I like it. I like the story moment here. This is obviously from Lord of the Rings, not the Hobbit, but it's showing up in the Eternal set here. This is the Witch King getting iced at the end. Pretty cool. No living man am I. Losing indestructible is useful, but what creatures in the Pauper format are you really using this on? The best things I can think of are a Kenku Artificer that has animated a land, a bridge, because they put 3 counters on a artifact. So it could be a bridge, it could be a nutrient block, could be a couple other things that have indestructible in the Pauper format. That just artifacts that are inherently indestructible, and then you can animate them into creatures. But those are so narrow. I can only come up with a few examples, and those decks don't even really show up. I have one of those decks, and I can tell you those decks don't really show up anywhere. So I don't think you need that ability. And then this is just an instant speed suplex that doesn't have the better half of suplex on it. So this sees no play. We'll continue to see no play. It's a cool moment from the books, from the movie. If you remember that moment, yeah, hey, that's when the Witch King died. But from a Pauper perspective, I think you go with like a 2.3. You don't need the lose the indestructible part to just deal 2 damage or deal 3 damage and exile the creature instead. But we also just looked at a card that does that and destroys an artifact token. So we kind of have a better version of this already. And this doesn't do anything. So yeah, I might even go lower. I might go like a 2.2. We just have cards that we ultimately know we would play over it. Tidings of War is our last red card of the day. Single red mana for a sorcery, Amass Goblins 1. If this spell was cast from a graveyard, Amass Goblins 3 instead. And it has flashback for 3 and a red. So 1 mana, 1/1, but a sorcery that goes into your graveyard. That's kind of okay. And then you can potentially put 3 more counters on that if it still lives around. So now you're paying 5 mana for a 4/4. Not the best rate, but not the worst, I guess. Even if this thing dies, you're paying 4 mana and you're making another goblin army. And you can mill this into your graveyard with whatever, and then just get the 3/3 goblin army. Like there's it's kind of stuff, but I don't think the goblin armies are all that useful. I think this is not a fantastic card. I'd give it something like a 2.4 and just move on to the green, which means I've earned another sip. All right, got to keep rolling. Addercop is 1 and a green for a 2/1 spider with reach and death touch. Okay. And it also has landfall. Whenever a land you control enters, this creature gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So they made, and this hurts me to no end. You can't imagine how much this hurts me. We've made a strictly better Thornwheeled Archer. I love this card. It is one of my favorite cards in Magic, specifically this Future Sight Frame one. God, it looks so good. So good. This is the original card too. This is the first printing of it in Future Sight, and I've loved this card for such a long time. Probably mostly because it had the Future Sight Frame on it, but also 2/1 reach, death touch. Your opponent feels like they just can't attack in. They are so screwed. What are they gonna do? Like this guy can block anything and kill it with death touch. That's so sweet. And then I won't exactly say we got a better one, although I think in most respects it is a better one. Now it's not in our format of Pauper, but Dragon Sniper from Tarkir Dragonstorm. Oh boy, 1 mana, 1/1 vigilance reach and death touch. That's awesome. Like this card is also really cool. This is why it's an uncommon that's $2. It's wild. Dragon Sniper's awesome card, but Thornwheeled Archer, that's my boy. That's my OG right there. And for this to go, I don't know, man. Here's a spider. It's a 2/1 with reach and death touch. It's the same thing. It's the same mana cost. It's the same abilities. It's the same power and toughness, but also it has landfall, so it can just get bigger. This is just better, and it makes me really sad. Thornwheeled Archer, man, my poor guy. He got power crept. But a 2/1 reach death touch for 2 mana is great. I like that already. And then the ability to also potentially pump it up. Now, these aren't counters. It is just +1/+1 until end of turn. But if I have a way of putting multiple lands down a turn, like an Explorer or an Arboreal Grazer or, a Rampant Growth even, like whatever, I can put multiple lands down in a turn. And now this thing becomes a 3/2, then a 4/3. Now I'm swinging in with that. And my opponent has to, like, oh, I went from having to trade with this guy to now I have to chump block this guy. This can also work really well with fetch lands. You know, I have an Evolving Wilds. It's on the table, and I pass the turn. Now my opponent has to go, oh, I have to swing in. If I swing in, they can sacrifice their Evolving Wilds at instant speed, put a land into play. That this thing becomes a 3/2 with Reach and Death Touch. That's going to kill my fairy instead of trading with this guy. That's pretty cool. That, I don't know if this is quite good enough for the Pauper format, but I love it. I love it. I mean, I hate it because it's better than my Thornwheeled Archer, but I also love it. So I'm going to write down Addercop here. Even though I'm probably a little bit more on the ACAB side, this is a cop I do like. Addercop, I think, is going to go nicely as a 4 of. Maybe it's just in my not exactly bulk bin, but my, hey, I might use these cards for something someday bin. I might put 4 Addercop in there. Poor Thornwheeled Archer. Great cards. Score-wise, I think I can... I think there's a chance this shows up in Pauper, honestly. Not a huge chance. Probably not in a lot of great decks, because, you know, what... It doesn't really synergize with a bunch of other cards. It's just kind of a generally decent creature on its own. And that's good, but you want that to do more. You want that to do more for your deck. You want it to work with more things in your deck, and I'm not sure this exactly does. I'll go with a 3.5. I think. You know who's going to use it? It's actually one of my favorite Magic YouTubers that I don't think I've mentioned on this channel before because he's not a Pauper guy. But it's Phantasm on YouTube. He makes a lot of he makes standard decks, and most of his decks are artisan decks, which, you know, he makes 0 rare decks, you know, decks that use no rare cards. And I think he'll use this a lot, probably with something like Finn the Fangbearer, and probably end up doing really dirty things with this, and I'll like this card even more. So I look forward to those videos. Go check them out if you haven't, because it's just good, strong arena gameplay, and the decks are really nice, and there's no commentary, and they're just you look at the decks and go, wow, yeah, no, that's actually really strong, even though it doesn't have any rares in it. And sometimes he'll dip into like, hey, here's like some mythic stuff, and I actually, you know, here's what happens when I try. And like, damn, there's good stuff. Some really good deck building there. Bjorn, Reluctant Host. Yeah, I knew Bjorn was the bear guy. Bjorn, Reluctant Host is 4 and a green, 4/a 5/5 trampling legendary creature, human, bear, shapeshifter. Those are fun creature types. But it makes sense. He can transform into a bear, so obviously he's a human bear shapeshifter. That's just what he is. 5 mana for a 5/5 trample. It's about on rate. I don't mind it. But he also comes with a sorcery adventure, which is Till and Tend. 1 and a green. Like I said, it's a sorcery. And you may play an additional land this turn. So you kind of get an explore without the draw card part, which sucks a little bit because the draw card is maybe the best part about explore. Still not terrible. Not terrible is just like a free spell. I know it's not free, but free as in I was going to cast this as a 5 mana 5/5 trampler, and it also gets this bonus spell on it where I can use it to put down a land, which helps me get to my 5/5 trampler even faster. You can make an argument for this one. I don't think you'll play it. I just think you'll have better cards available to you. In fact, we can play the game that I have to imagine you all hate, because I hate that I have to do it every time too, but it's a 4 and a green creature. Is this better than Avenging Hunter? And the answer is still no. But this one makes a little bit better of a case than most creatures do. Again, Avenging Hunter, as we'll show it again. We'll do it. Avenging Hunter. Got to spell it right. Avenging Hunter. 4 and a green, same mana cost for a 5/4 trample. Okay, so Bjorn's better, right? But when Avenging Hunter enters the battlefield, you take the initiative, and the initiative just is better. The secret entrance, just when you enter, when you start taking the initiative, you put you search your library for a basic land, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. That is just a drawn card at that point. I think you can still make an argument that Bjorn might be better. Hey, I was able to use the Till Intend earlier, and I put an extra land into play, so this is ramping me. This is just drawing me a land. And that, ensures that I will get to 6 mana next turn, but it's not ramping me. So that I think you can still make an argument. But then you have to consider that, well, what if you get to keep the initiative? And that is generally, most of the time, going down to the Forge, putting 2+1/+1 counters on something. Could put it on Avenging Hunter, which makes it into a 7/6. That's scary at that point. That's bigger than Bjorn. And then you go into the trap. Your opponent loses 5 life. That's really good when you can make them lose 5 life and then swing in with a 7/6. That's hard to beat. Archives draws you a card. Throne of the Dead 3 will get you a big cool creature out of the deal. Like, you're just getting so much value with this. Now you can also lose that value. If your opponent swings in, is able to take the initiative from you and keep it, then maybe it's worse. But overall, the Avenging Hunter is still generally better, and casting another Avenging Hunter would get the initiative back for you anyway. So Avenging Hunter is just one of the best cards in the format, and Bjorn is good, but not nearly good enough. I think I will still give this a 4. I think it does have really good value for it. It will be a really good card in Limited, but I don't see it being a real force in Pauper until Avenging Hunter gets banned. And there hasn't really been a whole lot of discussion of Avenging Hunter getting banned, which is kind of weird to me because all the other initiative creatures have gotten banned. So why do we get to keep the green one? The one that gets to come out even faster because green ramps already to begin with? That's a question you might have to ask Gavin Verhey and the Pauper format panel. I don't necessarily know. Let's move on. Did I give this one a score? Yeah, it was like a 4 or something, right? No, a 3.5. I don't know. It was one of those two. I know I said some words or some numbers rather. Bowside Wanderers is 4 in double green for a 4/4 elf scout. When this creature enters, look at the top 4 cards of your library. You may reveal a permanent card from among them, put it into your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library in a random order. Really wish that went to the graveyard. It also has landfall. When a land you control enters, this creature gets +2/+2 until end of turn. I don't think this is very good. 6 mana for a 4/4, already feeling bad. Yeah, the landfall thing lets me, make this into a 6/6, but even a 6 mana 6/6, now we're just kind of talking about Colossal Dreadmaw, and this doesn't have trample like Colossal Dreadmaw does, so it has to do something more. It does, I guess, in that it looks at 4 cards and you can find a permanent card and put it in your hand, so it is replacing itself already into your hand, and that's not bad. It's maybe getting you a good card that you'll cast next time. If you already have 6 mana to cast this thing, you'll probably have enough mana to cast whatever the thing is that you go find. I think this is just too much of a big dumb idiot that does nothing else. Like, once the enter the battlefield trigger happens, now you just paid 6 mana for a 4/4 that's just kind of sitting there, and sometimes can get a little bit bigger, but it's only just going to get chump blocked every turn. I don't think this quite does it. Maybe in Limited, where games are slower and you get to have this guy out there and he's going to help you find another big bomb to play later, or even just help you find the next land to make this into a 6/6 the next turn. Maybe those things happen, but I think outside of Limited, this is going to not work really at all. I will go for a 2.4 and no higher than that. Elvish Mystic. Elvish Mystic's great. We've seen it in lots of places. Where do you think the first place we saw Elvish Mystic is? Because Findhorn Elves is Ice Age, I believe, and Land of War Elves is all the way from Alpha. But Elvish Mystic is the one that I don't know as well. I feel like Elvish Mystic happened after I stopped playing Magic, when I took my break, and that was right after Eventide. Pretty sure. Yeah. Was it Eventide? Whatever the end of the Shadowmoor block was. I think that's Eventide, right? So I never got to Shards of Alara. So I think it's after Shards. This is like going to be like from a core set, maybe. Maybe? I don't know. I truly don't know. Yeah, core set. Core set 14, Magic 2014. Hell yeah. I don't know why we needed a third Land of War Elves, but we got one. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Elvish Mystic did get a new art, right? Yeah, this is a... Oh, no. Sorry. Well, it's the Tales of Middle Earth art, so it is semi a new art, but also not really a new art. And this is not in the standard set. This is only in the Commander set or the Eternal set. And we don't really need it in standard anyway. We already have Land of War Elves, so you don't need Elvish Mystic when you already got Land of War Elves. And I don't think you're playing 8 Land of War Elves in standard these days. Not these days, anyway. Elvish Mystic, it's single green mana for a 1/1 Elf Druid. You tap it to add a green. That's great. That's great. This sees a lot of play in Pauper in one deck, which is the Elves deck. But it sees play in there. It sees play when you don't want to play Land of War Elves or you don't want to play Fyndhorn Elves, and you go, well, I want to play the other one. So you play this one instead. That's an option. It's just as good of an option as Land of War Elves or Fyndhorn Elves. I tend to like Fyndhorn Elves art the best, and then Land of War Elves art next. A lot of different good Land of War Elves. And then Elvish Mystic, I think, is good. So but this is generally my third pick. But they're all really good. I mean, it's kind of just Land of War Elves, and good old Larry would get, I don't know, like an 8. So this also gets an 8. I mean, I'd bump it down to a 7.9, but functionally it is just an 8. Elvish Mystic continues to be good, but that's kind of neither here nor there. Elvish Visionary, also a card that has seen its fair share of reprints and is pretty staply here. This was from Shards. That makes sense. Card I did not see, but I know I've known about it. This has seen a lot of play. 1 and a green for a 1/1 Elf Shaman. When this creature enters, you draw a card. Doesn't see as much play right now, but has seen some more contemporary play just as a card that replaces itself if you are able to make your green spells cheaper, which there are some cards that can do that in the Pauper format. Now you're just paying 1 mana to put a creature down and draw a card, and then maybe that's another one that you can put a creature down and draw a card. And if you really need to draw cards, if you really need to just put down bodies, there's a lot worse that you can do than Elvish Visionary. This, like I said, it has seen some play, kind of more like rogue fringe stuff. This doesn't really go in the Elves deck. The Elves deck doesn't need it really, but it could. It probably did at one point before the Elves got so many good Elves that it didn't need this card. But it's still solid, part of the Eternal set, and this gets like I think I'm gonna give it like a 5.6. It's playable, but not as playable, but it is still playable. Galadream Guide is 3 and a green for a 3/4 Elf Scout. When this creature enters, you scry 2. That's a magic card right there. That is what a magic card does. It was fine before. It's fine now. It's not great. It's like a 2.5. No, it can't be a 2.5. It's just too expensive for that. 2.4, 2.3, something like that. 4 mana, 3/4, especially in green. I feel like that just needs to be better. My green creatures can do so many things for 4 mana. I need them to be stronger than a 3/4. The Scry 2 is fine when it comes into play, but I need it to do something once it's actually out there. So yeah, I'll bump it down to like a 2.3. Guardians of the Hall, our Guardian of the Halls is 1 and a green for a 2/2 Elf Soldier with Trample. You can pay 5 and double green to put 3 +1/+1 counters on this creature. We got back to the Grizzly Bear with the giant activated ability that you'll probably won't play in the limited format. So it's not a full cycle. I didn't see one for red, and maybe I didn't see one for black, but there definitely was one for white and blue, and now we definitely see one here for green. Guardian of the Halls, not very good. I think a Grizzly Bear, Elf Soldier, it's not going to go in the Elf deck. It's not going to go in any sort of Soldiers deck that doesn't even really exist in Pauper right now. A 2/2 Trampler, it's not not that great. I mean, I know the idea it has trample because maybe eventually I can pay the 7 mana, put 3 counters on this guy, and now he's a 5/5 trample. Ooh, okay. But now I've spent 9 whole mana to do that. A 9 mana 5/5 with trample is a bad rate. And I guess you can keep pumping mana and make it bigger and bigger, but yeah, that's a lot of mana. That's a lot of mana. I suppose with an infinite amount of mana, which you can do in the Pauper format, this guy is technically a finisher combo thing. Not the best one. I wouldn't even say a good one, but I suppose you have to put a little bit of respect on his name and give him like a 3.2. But I don't think this is a particularly good card. Little Bear. Not a whole lot of these at common. I think this might actually be the only one at common. But there is, I believe, a bear at every rarity in this set. Lots of different bears. Maybe not a mythic one, but I'm pretty positive there's a common, an uncommon, and a rare bear in this set. There might actually be a mythic one too. They put a lot of bears here. Little Bear is 2 and a green for a 3/2 bear. How dare they? It's got flash, and when this creature enters, you untap another target creature you control. If that creature's a bear, put a +1/+1 counter on it. They really want the bears to happen in limited, and I have a feeling they might work. They might work in limited. For Pauper, hey man, I love bears as much as the next person, but there's just not there's not any really good ones in Pauper. We have so many different, grizzly cubs and grizzly bear, and I think there's maybe one other one. There's werebear, I suppose too. Like we have bears in the format. That's not the problem. I don't think this is there. 3 mana 3/2 with flash. When it enters, you can untap another target creature. That's okay. It is like a combat trick blocker that can also give you another untapped creature to block something else with. That potentially can be a real blowout for the opponent. And then in limited, when you have potentially more bears, putting a 1/1 counter on that creature to block even better, that could lead to some real blowouts. In the Pauper format, I think this is just not quite what we're looking for. I'd go for a 2.7. I do like the flash speed. That's about it. You could also flash this in on your turn and untap your guy who tapped for an ability or tapped to attack and hold him back up to tap with another ability or something like that. Like if you did it to a werebear, because the werebear can tap for a green, you tap for a green, you spend that green and 2 other mana on this, flash it in, untap your werebear, it gets +1/+1 and can tap again for another green, and maybe you can keep chaining spells like that. That's something to consider, but I don't think it's very good. Yeah, I gave this a score, right? I gave it like a 3, or no, a 2.7 or something like that. I don't know. That's about what it is. Lothlorien Lookout is 1 and a green for a 1/3 elf scout. When this creature attacks, scry 1. That's also pretty normal, but 3 toughness is generally enough to keep this thing alive on a lot of boards, so you might get a couple of good scries out of it before the board gets too powered up. And even then, keeping this on defense, you're not getting the scries from the attacking, but 1/3 is a pretty good defender for the things that you need to defend against for a little bit, at least. Hasn't seen any play before, won't see any play now. Pretty normal card. It's kind of whatever. I'd go for a 2.3. Hey, I was wrong. There's another bear in this at common. It's an ordinary bear, and yet one of the stronger bears. It's 3 and a green for a 4/5 bear. Sitting right now at pre-order prices of $1.71. Don't pay that. This card's 15 cents, if that. It's like 5 cents, really. Again, hurts me that we're making bears anything other than 2/2. I understand that it's a bear. Like bears are big, strong creatures. Not in Magic, in life. Bears are strong in life. Bears are big in life. That's a bit of a reference to a thing you probably don't understand, and that's perfectly fine. Bears are large in life. It's just true. It's just true. But a 4/5 bear for 4 is an okay rate, but it's a vanilla creature. It's not anything we care about in Pauper. I will stick with what a bear gets, and a bear gets a 2 around these parts. I know the little bear got more, but the little bear did more. This ordinary bear, which is not little, will get a worse score than the little bear. You can't bring logic into these things sometimes. When you think about a grizzly bear being a 2/2 and you think about Gollum being a 4/3, a bear would mess Gollum up. That's not true. Gollum's pretty scrappy. Gollum might be able to take out the bear. Maybe. Gollum might be able to annoy the bear before the bear murders it. Ordinary bear gets a 2. Quarrel is 1 and a green for an instant speed. Target creature you control deals damage equal to its power to target creature an opponent controls. Instant speed, pretty good. Too bad we already have card I mentioned before, Ram Through. Ram Through does this exact same thing, except if the target you control has trample, the excess damage is dealt to that creature's controller instead. So strictly better Quarrel. Quarrel's fine, but it's not. It'll be fine and limited, and you won't play it in Pauper. It gets a 2.6. No, not even that. 2.4. Warglane is 1 and a green for a 2/2 wolf. It's got ferocious. Whenever this creature attacks while you control a creature with power 4 or greater until end of turn, this creature gets +1/+0, and creatures you control get trample. That's cool. I do like a board-wide trample. That's quite all right. And this thing at least becomes a 3/2. That could make for quite a good alpha strike if you're doing that. And it doesn't take a whole lot. You just have to have one creature that's power 4 or greater. That should be pretty easy to do. You could even give this guy a couple counters, and then he becomes pretty scary because he'll probably live. If he's big enough, he'll live through that attack. So you could do it again the next turn and give all your guys trample again. I think this is a little slow for this format. Yes, you can get on the board on turn 2, but you won't have the ferocious on turn 2, and you might not even have the ferocious on turn 3. And I think at this point, this thing is small enough to just get taken out. I almost said snuffed out, but it could get snuffed out, but I'm talking more like lightning bolts, or just snuffing out as a euphemism here for getting killed on the board. There's something there. I want to give it a decent score, but I also just know that this thing's not really going to make a whole lot of impact. I would love to eat my words on that, but I don't think this will make much of an impact. I will give it a 3.2 and keep going. To Warg Tactics, really like this art. Is 1 and a green for an instant. Choose 1, destroy target creature with flying, or put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. It gains trample and hexproof until end of turn. Now that's interesting. Man, we have a lot of cards in green in this format that give you modality for a number of things, obviously. Mostly we're talking about naturalize effects, which destroy a target artifact or enchantment. You will see that naturalize is not a good card on its own, but when you see heritage reclamation or something like that goes, oh well, you can destroy an artifact or enchantment as one mode, or the other mode is you can exile a card out of the graveyard and draw a card, or there's other ones that say, destroy target flyer, or there's other ones that say, I don't know, like your creature gets hexproof until end of turn. Like we do have ones that do a lot of different things. Now this one's interesting in that it doesn't have the naturalize part, but it kind of goes in that same family of all the naturalize effects that have other modes to them. But this is kind of taking, what if we took two of the modes that we sometimes slap on the naturalize effect and we just put those together on the same card and see if people react to it? And I think this one's ends up being pretty cool. The plummet effect, the destroy target creature with flying, that will sometimes be useful. I think you're going to feel pretty bad most of the time in the Pauper format. You don't have a whole lot of flyers that are really going to be the one reason you're dying. You know, you don't have generally. I mean, there are dragons that are at common. We just saw the Smaug, but we also know that there are other pretty decent dragons in the Pauper format, but they don't see a whole lot of play because dragons themselves are just not quite suited to having a lot of good common cards to make a deck. I've tried making a dragon deck before, a Gruul one, a Teamer one, and it was okay, but there's just better things out there. There aren't a ton of, hey, I just made a giant flyer outside of the Monstertron deck that makes the Pinnacle Kill-Ship. And that can be taken out by a naturalize effect. So I don't know how much the plummet effect will really make a difference. You know, what are you taking out a Glinthawk? You taking out a Core Skyfisher? You taking out a Fairy? Those that feels pretty bad to spend 2 mana to have to do that. Those creatures are not good enough or strong enough rather to really make a difference for that. You can chump block them, or not chump block them. You can trade with them pretty easily. Sometimes you can just block them if you're in green. If you got like a big creature with reach, what does it matter if you have if you have a fairy? I've got like a 5/7 with reach. What are you? You're not getting in on this. So the plummet effect I don't think is all that big of a deal. The other effect is actually really good for what it is. Put it in +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. We've seen that before. It getting trample and hexproof. That's pretty good. Now we do have a card that kind of does this, which is Gaia's Gift. Gaia's Gift puts a 1/1 counter on target creature you control. It gains reach, trample, hexproof, and indestructible. It just kind of gives you everything. But it also doesn't have the plummet effect on it. Gaia's Gift's really good, but having the option of having the plummet, and I think these are probably the best things that you can. I mean, indestructible is also really good, but these are pretty darn good things to give to a creature. Giving it hexproof gives you a lot of protection from a lot of different spells. Giving the +1/+1 counter gives you a lot of protection from a lot of different things, from like just keeping the creature alive from swinging in. Giving it trample means, hey, a big creature you have is not just going to get chump blocked. You're getting through with something. These are all good. Do I wish indestructible was also thrown in here? Yeah, I kind of do. But I mean, I think it's a real tough call whether Gaia's Gift is better than Warg Tactics. The plummet is nice to have. I might still go with Gaia's Gift because giving the creature reach also can sometimes end up working like a plummet, because I will give my creature all this stuff and then be able to block their flyer with this and kill it. So I think I might still edge towards Gaia's Gift if I have to make the call, but I think Warg Tactics is pretty good, and I'm actually going to write it down. Warg Tactics. I think there's something to it, if not a lot, but something. Wood Elves is a card we have seen many times before, but it's always a great card. 2 and a green for a 1/1 Elf Scout. When this creature enters, search your library for a forest card. Put that card onto the battlefield. Untapped, by the way. Also, just a forest card, not just a common, not a basic forest, any forest. That's also really good. Onto the battlefield and then shuffle. This is a classic, just a real classic. This art's okay. If you want my opinion of the arts, there's really only 2 ways to go. There is the Rebecca art, which Rebecca can kind of do no wrong, and this art looks gorgeous. In fact, she made a second art, which also looks gorgeous. Both of these arts, awesome, perfect in every way. You can't go wrong with either of them. I think this is the slightly better one, but they're both awesome. And no disrespect to my girl Rebecca, but Christopher Muller art. This is my Wood Elves. I think it's just because this is the first one I ever saw in 7th edition. I own this card. I love this card. I just love this art to death. I like these 2 idiots. And then these were our only wood elves for a long time in lots of different forms, and then this one's fine. I just don't like it as much. This one's creepy. I don't like it. This one's fine. It's whatever. I mean, there's lots of fine ones, and we got new art here, and it's also fine, and this one's also fine. Like, there's a lot of fine ones out there. This one's a little unnecessary if you ask me, but I get it. Secret Lair people need to do Secret Lair stuff. But man, this is my wood elves. I mean, technically, this is my wood elves. But man, I could go for either of these ones and feel awesome. Wood elves is 30 bucks for the original Portal one. That's crazy. That's crazy. And it was a rare in Portal. Isn't that wild? This card's a common now, and it started life as a rare. The starter one's same art, and it's only $4, which that's also still too much. But you can grab the 7th edition one for 38 cents and feel pretty good about it. Anyway, that is a lot of talk about a lot of things that are not the card itself that we're talking about here. Wood Elves continues to be good. Doesn't see play in Pauper. It's a little slow. 3 mana is a lot of mana to put out, even if it kind of is just 2 mana, because it will find a land, put it into play, untapped, and then kind of just pays you back that 1. So it is really a 2 mana card, but you have to at least have the 3 mana to begin with to be able to cast it in the first place, and that's just too slow for our format. I gotta give Wood Elves like a 3.6, but it just doesn't quite make it. Before we get into the multicolored cards, one, I got to take a big sip, and then I got a bone to pick. We didn't get the last land cycler. Did I skip it? There's no way. Is Generous Ent not in the Hobbit? What? How? Is there not a green? What are the? I'm sorry, I gotta look at this on my other screen for a second. Hobbit commander decks. Maybe we just haven't seen all of these yet. What? There's what? Why would you do this? Also, this website is terrible, Wizards. What are we doing? This is not a. Oh my god, this is a terrible, absolutely god awful website, Wizards. Okay, wait a minute. So there's no Hobbit commander decks. Where are these Eternal cards coming from? These aren't jump starts, are they? Hobbit Eternal. Where? Welcome decks. Is that what these are? I don't even know, man. Welcome decks. 40 cards. Hobbit Eternal legal set. Each of these welcome decks contains a 40-card monocolor deck consisting of cards from the Magic the Gathering, The Hobbit, and Magic the Gathering, The Hobbit Eternal legal set. Each card depicts characters, moments, and tales from Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. If you or someone you know, blah blah blah. That's whatever. I work in advertising. I'm a copywriter. I write copy like this all the time, and it's kind of hurts you sometimes. Below you'll find deck lists for the 5 welcome decks. Okay, I'm gonna look through these real quick just to make sure that these are. So the Eagles of the North does show up in the white deck. Lorien Revealed does show up in the blue deck. Only one copy of the Eagles as well. The black deck has 1 copy of Troll of Khazad-dûm. The red deck has 1 copy of Oliphant, and the green deck does not include Generous Ent. What? Wizards, what are you doing? Like, why would you print 4 out of the 5 on the cycle? Why would you print? I don't know. Generous Ent needs to be part of this. It's stupid. Absolutely stupid that it's not a part of this. Because look at this thing. This thing costs $3. If you want the scroll version, which I don't think the scroll versions look very good, but if you want the scroll version, it's almost $9. This is $3 for a common card. That's ridiculous. Jenderson's really good. I think it is the third best one of these. I'm just gonna ad hoc give this one a score because I'm pissed because I did all the other ones, assuming that I would also get to talk about Genersen. Genersen's great. 5 and a green for a 5/7 tree folk with reach. When this creature enters, you create a food token, and then it 4 cycles for 1. Awesome, fantastic. Having a 5/7 with reach is really good. Having 1 pip on this card is also really good. Monstertron plays this. Some other decks play this too, but like Monstertron, I think is probably the best deck for this, as that deck generally doesn't have a whole lot of flying support outside of the Pinnacle Kill-Ship. So having a big chunky guy who has reach and just is hard to get through, putting down a food token that allows you to stay alive, having a food token that just puts an artifact into play can sometimes be helpful for you. This card's great. It's really good. You'll sometimes see this in Gruul Ramp. Sometimes, not a ton, but maybe something to cascade into from your Annoyed Altasaur. Why would you not? Wizards, Wizards, what are you doing? This was a great opportunity. You did it for all the other ones. Also, you should just also reprint this one and make the prices go down. What are you? I'm so annoyed by Wizards. I'm taking another sip. That's what they get. Generosent gets like a 7.8. So better than Oliphant. Not quite as good. Really close, but not quite as good as Troll of Khazad-dûm. And then none of them are as good as Lorien Revealed, which, oh boy, it's so good. Is it so good because it's on a sorcery that you can discard for the land? Like being able to discard Lorien Revealed to go get the island and putting a sorcery in your graveyard, which you know is going to help you pay for or help reduce the cost of the Tolarian Terror and the Cryptic Serpent. That really helps. If Lorien Revealed was a blue creature with island cycling instead, it wouldn't be able to go into the mono blue terror deck. It wouldn't be as useful there. It being a sorcery really makes a difference where all the other 4 are creatures. And sometimes I'm really bummed that blue never got the creature one. So I'm like, do I play Ice Flan or something like that from Final Fantasy that has the 2 mana land cycling? And the answer is no, you never play that. But still, how do you not put? Never mind. Let's move on to the multicolored cards. Patient Instructor is 2 and an Azorius hybrid, a white or a blue, for a 2/2 human citizen with vigilance. And when this creature enters, you recruit. Pretty normal. I like the recruit. It can potentially put 3 power on the board and loot you, and this 2/2 has vigilance. These are all okay things. Human is a good creature type. This being able to go in blue or white is pretty cool. None of these things are bad. I don't think these things are quite good enough to make this Pauper playable. I would put this as like a 2.8. And we'll move on to our next and last page of our previews here of our buyer's guide. Goblin Plate Mail is 1 in Rakdos hybrid, so a black or a red for an artifact equipment. When this equipment enters, you amass goblins 1, then attach this equipment to the amassed army. An equipped creature gets +1/+0 and has menace and equips for 4. Whoa, 4 is too high, but it's 2 mana to at least make. It's 2 mana to make a 1/1 guy with menace. But if you already have a goblin army out there, maybe it's a big goblin army, and this makes your goblin army slightly bigger and gives it menace. And if your goblin army ever dies, I guess you can attach this to something else to give it +1/+0 and menace. This is okay the first time it comes down, and it is terrible after that. If you have to pay 4 mana to equip this, you are messing up. Something went terribly wrong. And I think overall, you really just shouldn't put this in your deck and put yourself in that position. This gets I think this is so trappy. I have to go down into the ones on this one. I'll give this a 1.8. 8, because it really is a 2/1 with menace, and that's yeah, 1.8 I think is where we go. Duskwatch Hunter is 2 and a Golgari hybrid, black or green, for a 3/1 wolf. This creature can't be blocked by tokens. Interesting. And when this creature enters, you put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Also kind of interesting. So you get a 3 mana 3/1, which could be a 3 mana 4/2, and it can't just be chump blocked by little token guys. It can be blocked by non-token guys that can also block this thing all day. The not being blocked by tokens probably doesn't actually show up all that much. It is interesting that in this limited format that the goblin armies are tokens, so you might have a giant goblin army and it doesn't really matter because this guy can't be blocked by tokens. That's cute. So you have to block it with something quote unquote real to try to stop this guy. You can also put the +1/+1 counter on something else. That's fine too. 3 mana though. I don't particularly love that mana cost for what you're getting here. The +1/+1 counter helps, but not quite enough. I think I can give this a 2.4. Nori, Teller of Tales, is 1 and a Boros hybrid, red or white, for a 2/2 legendary creature dwarf bard. And when Nori attacks, target attacking creature gains first strike until end of turn. That's a pretty decent grizzly bear, all things considered. 2 mana 2/2, so we get the bear stats that way. But attacking target creature gains first strike until end of turn. That's cool. It can give itself first strike, so that makes it pretty solid as a attacker. Again, as we've mentioned on the rating Pauper cards before that show, the Wizards has generally moved into giving you first strike on attacks or only during your turn to encourage you to attack and discourage you from just holding up a first striker to block, which can really slow the game down and gum up the board. So this helps to make you the aggressor on your turn, and that's cool. I do like that you can give it to Nori. I like that you can give it to something else though. That makes it pretty flexible, and I think that's cool. Is this good enough to see play in a deck? I don't think so. I'm almost positive it doesn't, in fact. But it's cute, and I can give it a 3 for that. A cute 3. Mirkwood Nurturer is 2 and a Simic hybrid, so a blue or a green or a blue, for a 3/2 Elf Ranger. When this creature enters, return up to 1 other target permanent you control to its owner's hand. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on this creature. Man, they're trying. But this is not a nurturing pixie. It does not give you. It does not have flying. It is not 1 mana. So this is not nearly as good as nurturing pixie. It's not nearly as good as a Sun Pearl Kieran. Those are not in the format because they are too good for the format. And the ones we have to stick with are things like the Glinthawk, which this is also not as good as a Glinthawk. This is also not as good as a Core Skyfisher. And in these colors, more relevantly, it's not even as good as why did I forget the name of that card? I love this card so much. The Illusion, the 1/5 monkey looking illusion guy. I love that dude. I should probably remember his name, but it's not even as good as that. That one doesn't get the counter if you bounce one of your own things. But I don't think a 3 mana 4/3 that bounces a thing is really all that useful, especially in Simic colors. Like what am I bouncing in Simic that I care about so much? There aren't as many artifacts and enchantments that I want to put down and pick up in the same way that there are in white and black, or even red, where you're doing things like Boros Synthesizer. I'm sure there are examples. Don't get me wrong. I'm sure there's probably 100 examples of cards that could decently work with this. But do you want to pay 3 mana to play this? Bounce one of those things, and if you paid 3 mana, will you have enough mana to then replay that card that you just picked up? And the answer is probably no. I know it's Simic. I'll just ramp into everything and draw all the cards or whatever, and maybe you can. You are in Simic. You can do kind of anything you want. But I think this is just going to end up being too expensive for what you're doing, and we already have some pretty efficient options to the point that there are lots of good white cards that kind of do this same thing that are priced way better than this, but still don't see play because they're not a core Skyfisher or a Glendhawk, and that's rough. It's pretty competitive to take those kinds of spots, and this one doesn't. It gets like a 2.6. Colorless cards, we're on to that. Take a quick sip now, since that was relatively quick. Good stuff. Giant's Boulder is a single mana, generic mana of any color for an artifact. When this artifact enters, you scry 2. Okay, so it's like a oh my god, a candy trail. That's what I'm thinking. It was like cookie something. A candy trail. That's what you're thinking. You can pay 1 mana, tap, and add 1 mana of any color. Okay, so it's like a filter, a candy trail that filters. I can kind of get behind that. And you can pay 7, tap, and sacrifice this artifact to destroy target permanent. So it's kind of throwing a bunch of different cards together. It is a little bit of Candy Trail, like I mentioned. Now, Candy Trail is a food clue, which can gain you life and draw you a card. This isn't going to do that. So Candy Trail's probably better for most of the things that you're using, but still not too bad. So enters the battlefield, or enters, you scry 2. I don't hate that. It's something you can play on turn 1 and feel pretty good about. Fine. Next one I wanted to look at, pay 1, tap, and add a mana of any color. So it's kind of like a Prophetic Prism in that way, but it's not drawing you a card. So it's a little worse than Prophetic Prism, but it also does a different thing. Okay, so it's like part Candy Trail, part Prophetic Prism, and part, I mean, there's a lot of cards that do this right, but like Universal Solvent, which can tap, sack to destroy target permanent. This destroys permanent. So you could do lands on this one too. So this is part Candy Trail, part Prophetic Prism, and part Universal Solvent. Is that good enough to see play anywhere? I mean, if anywhere, the place that it goes is Monstertron, right? And maybe other forms of Tron, but definitely Monstertron is a consideration. Tron can pay the 7 mana to destroy a target permanent if that's a problem. Tron certainly likes the Prophetic Prisms in that they're able to filter through things. We also see another card that gets played in Tron for this kind of reason is Barrels of Blasting Jelly, which pretty similar to this card. A 1 mana card that comes down. Now this one you can only activate once a turn, but you can keep this up. So you can still tap and sack this to deal the 5 damage to the target creature, but it doesn't destroy target permanent, which this can. But you can't filter the mana and then also destroy the permanent. So there's reasons to play the Blasting Jelly instead. I think this becomes a real argument. Prophetic Prism staying where it is. The drawn card is like a really powerful thing that the Monstertron decks wants, or most Tron decks that are playing Prophetic Prism, they want the drawn card because they could probably play like a Chromatic Sphere or something, like, and I guess that also draws them a card, but they have other ways of getting the filter. They want Prophetic Prism for the card draw and the filter, but they like the card draw enough that I think that stays in the deck. Candy Trail, I think, also stays because, again, it also draws a card and it gains you life, which is very useful, and that's pretty good. So the Scry 2 is nice here, and so I don't hate it, but I think Candy Trail is probably still better for what you want a Candy Trail for. The one that I think could go is Barrels. This is the argument I think people have to make, and this probably ends up being the most played card in the set, I think. I need to look back through my notes here real quick. I think so. I think this has the chance to be the most played card for Pauper in the Hobbit set. And I think some people will replace Barrels of Blasting Jelly with this. And I think they might have success. I might even end up doing that in my Monstertron deck. This is the one. I think unless there's something else that I haven't seen or haven't thought of yet that's still to come, and there's not a whole lot left, I think this is the card that will see the most play in the Pauper format. I'm going to write it down first because that makes sense. If I'm going to make a claim like that, I better buy some copies of it. Giants Boulder. And 4 copies of that. I don't know if you'd play all 4 copies in a Monstertron deck, but maybe. I mean, however many copies of Barrels of Blasting Jelly you're playing, I think you just swap them out with this. Having more Scrying in that deck is also really good, especially for a deck that wants to cascade. Remember, Monstertron wants to cascade, so having another thing that comes in and cascades and scries to make sure you're set your top of your deck the best it can be, so then you can cascade into the really good thing. And this is the one. This is the one. I'm gonna give this a tentative, a very tentative, because I could totally see somebody trying this and goes, nope, it doesn't work. But I think it will. I think it will work. I'm gonna give it a 5.9. And I think I want to give it room to grow. I think this could get up into like a mid 6. Maybe. And that's probably about where I'd put a Candy Trail. Giants Boulder's good. Grab copies of this for sure. We only got a handful more. Long-bodied Gray Dog is the best name in the set for sure. 3 mana for a 2/2 dog with flash and reach, and when this creature enters, create a tapped treasure token. So we did see a creature before, one of the dwarves, that comes into play and makes you a treasure token. This one makes you a tap treasure, which is worse, but also this is a completely colorless card. And that's really good. That is... Now think of this more as a combat trick. This is 3 mana to... Think of it as a 3 mana instant speed, give one of your creatures reach and +2/+2 and gain a tap treasure. And that's a pretty decent combat trick on its own. And then remember that it's not a combat trick for one of your other creatures. This is a creature on its own. That's pretty good. This thing can come in at instant speed, flash speed here, block a thing, maybe kill it, maybe not. I don't know. That part kind of doesn't matter, but it comes in and can at least block. Possibly prevents a lot of damage from coming at you, maybe even blows the opponent out and kills one of their creatures. Either of those scenarios, probably fine for our purposes here. And it makes you a tap treasure token, so when you untap next turn, you have even more that you can do. Both having an artifact on the field, if you have affinity for artifact stuff, or just giving you another mana of any color to kind of ritual you up here with the treasure token and be able to play your own big bomb that might be able to stop their attack. This could see some play. It's not great. It's 3 mana for a flash 2/2 reach. Like that's not a particularly great creature on its own. I think the treasure token is what's really helping. The flash and the treasure token are the things that really matter here. But the other things are relevant. Reach is good to stop those fairies. I mean, I guess it's a very long body, but I have to write this one down. I think this was also potentially a good card, and any deck can play it. That's maybe the most important thing here. Think about the decks that don't ramp well. Think about blue decks. Those decks don't ramp very well. Think about white decks don't ramp all that great in the Pauper format. These could be useful cards in decks like that to get them a little extra mana while also giving them kind of a combat trick of a little protection, of a little blocking. Red can do things with treasure tokens, and they have other ways of making treasure tokens, certainly in red, but red doesn't have a ton of these other abilities of reach and things like that. I mean, that's kind of useful. This is a pretty useful card. Long-bodied Gray Dog. I also like that it's gray with an E. I don't know why I like that, I just do. I'm gonna get 4 copies of this. I think this is a cool card. Will it see more play than this? Nah, I can't. I can't imagine. Maybe. I mean, it can potentially go in more decks, but I still think this is the best card in the set that I've seen so far. Long Body Gray Dog, though, I like that they're experimenting more with completely colorless creatures. That aren't just artifacts, but completely colorless creatures that also help mana fix. We saw that in Lorwyn Eclipsed with the Changeling Wayfinder, which came in and got you a land, a basic land of any color, or of any basic land type, rather. And now you're just getting a guy that comes down and gives you a treasure token. These are cool. These are cool cards. Old Thrush is another colorless creature, 2 mana for a 1/2 bird with flying. And when this creature enters, you gain 2 life. You may search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, then shuffle and put that card on top. So we don't like the put it on top part, but this is, again, a card that any deck can play. This is going to be really good in limited, just as, you know, I don't know if this set has, this set doesn't have Evolving Wilds. I'm pretty sure. I guess we'll see pretty soon here, but this is your way of mana fixing. Is, okay, I can just play this not great bird, 2 mana, 1/2 flyer, kind of whatever. It does gain you a couple life when it enters the field, and that's okay too. I think you should probably play most copies you get in limited as a way of just mana fixing, making sure you're hitting your land drops. It does kind of, if you don't need your land drop, then it does say you may, so you don't have to do that, but that feels a little bad to play the card and not get the full effect out of it. But it also feels bad to tempo lock yourself a little bit into guaranteeing a land for the next turn's draw if you don't necessarily want that. But this is pretty good in limited. In Pauper, not really good. This just locks you too much to tempo you out and force you to draw a land on the next turn. If it went into your hand, we'd have a completely different conversation. But a 2 mana 1/2 flying bird, it's an okay body, and then and getting this little extra gravy on it with the life and the land is cool for limited. Pauper wise, I'll go for a 2.5. It's neat, but not great. Wayfarer's Bauble. This goes in the I don't know which one of these welcome decks that it goes into, but Wayfarer's Bauble's a fine card. We've seen it played lots of places. This not quite good enough anymore to go in Pauper. Maybe never good enough to go in Pauper, but it's a commander semi-staple, budget staple at the very least. And so Wayfarer's Bauble, it gets like a 3, but it doesn't go in your Pauper decks. Well-Worn Spatula is a single mana for an artifact equipment. When this equipment enters, you gain 2 life. Equipped creature gets +1/+1, and it equips for 1. I gotta be this guy again. I came up in Mirrodin. That's where I started playing Magic, was 8th edition in Mirrodin, and the cards I got from my friend who got me into Magic were 4th and 5th edition. So I have a respect and a love and an appreciation for retro frame cards, but when I came into Magic was Mirrodin time. So a card like Leon and Scimitar was a card that I kind of realized pretty quickly, originally from Mirrodin, but also in 10th edition here. I realized pretty quick that this is not a very good card, but I still have, no pun intended here, an affinity for this card. And it's a 1 mana equipment that equips for 1, gives a creature +1/+1. Couldn't be simpler. And then we got another card when I was not playing Magic that they just made another one. Short Sword, which same exact thing. 1 mana, equips for 1, +1/+1. Now this is, here's the thing. This has been, reprinted a handful of times, but the Leon and Scimitar part, it makes it a little bit more specific to a single Magic plane, or a single, it goes with the cat people, right? So Short Sword is a card that hasn't been reprinted much, and that's just because it's a bad card. But this one can be reprinted in any set, right? You could make an argument that any set, like Star Trek, oh, that's not a set with swords. There was probably a short sword somewhere in a Star Trek set if you really needed this card to go in that set. So this is the one that they will probably keep reprinting on and on. Now they got to reprint this in Foundations Jumpstart because the Jumpstart stuff made a little bit more sense with having cats in those sets. Anyway, that neither here nor there. We made a better Leonin Scimitar. And that makes me a little sad. We made a better short sword, which makes me less sad. But now if you have your options, it's like, oh, do I want to play the Leonin Scimitar? Oh, that looks cool. Looks like a big scary sword that can get swung around. Or do I want to play this old ass spatula, which is better because it gains you life when it comes into play? I get it. It is power creep happens to the best of us, and this is also, it's power creeping a card that was really bad before, and this card is also pretty bad. But it does sadden me a little bit to see cards from my childhood that I remember, my high school days, that I remember and go, those cards just are kind of unplayable now. To be fair, Leonin Scimitar was always kind of unplayable. Well-worn Spatula, it's not good enough for the Pauper format, but it is generally fine. I do like that it gains life when it enters play. That's a cool little extra piece of gravy. I'll go for a 2. Why not? And then how many specific lands do we have, right? I mean, we'll go through the basics. I did not realize that the basics had flavor text on it. These are good. Ooh, I really like that. That makes perfect sense. Passages from the book. That's, man, why didn't the other Lord? Why didn't the Lord of the Rings one have passage from the book? I guess because they had the map looking full arts that are also kind of cool. This is cool. We've gotten this before. Was it the D&D one, Adventure in the Forgotten Realms, had flavor text lands, but I like that. I might need to pick up more of these lands. A lot of different full arts, but just the one normal one. That's cool. Well, I mean, we don't rate. I mean, all these basic lands get like a 7. Basic lands are good. What do you want from me? The island. Oh, look at the island. That looks really good. I really also like this scene. Like, these scenes are also pretty good. You got that's not the Shire, right? No, because it's like a little tent they've got set up. Yeah, that looks nice though. The island looks really nice. I don't know if I need the full arts. I think these are just really pleasant. Swamp. I think this is a pretty good looking swamp too. Man, these are good. I like the watermarked land symbol behind. That's, man. These are really making me happy. I think the lands might be some of my favorite cards in the set. Now this mountain doesn't really feel like a mountain to me. It feels more like this kind of spire thing. That doesn't work for me as much, but I still like generally what I'm seeing. You get a little mountain in the background anyway. Forest is good too. These are just good lands. Yeah, these are great. I love those. Okay, we do get some extra lands, so we can go through these pretty quickly because we really only need to rate one of them. Lake Town is a land that enters tapped. It taps for a white or a blue, and you can pay 2 and Azorius, so 2 and a white and a blue, and tap and sacrifice this land to put 2+1/+1 counters on target human you control. Maybe we will have to go through all of these. That's, I don't know, in the grand scheme of these tapped lands, tapped duels that do another thing. We have the new Capenna lands that come in tapped but can pay this exact mana cost and sacrifice to draw 2 cards. We have the Avatar ones that are just the new Capenna ones, but you just have to pay 4 generic mana and sacrifice to draw 2 cards. We've got lands that can surveil. What were those from? Spider-Man, maybe? Marvel? I can't remember which one. I don't know. It doesn't matter. But they can surveil for a bunch of extra mana. We've got some that scry for a bunch of mana. Is putting 2+1/+1 counters on a human. Now in white, in Azorius rather, there are probably a lot of humans out there, especially in limited here. That's why they did it. But even outside of limited, if you're doing like a soldiers kind of deck, most of those soldiers are humans. You get all the recruit tokens in this set as well. That one's actually probably pretty good, but we need to talk about the creature types parts, which does make me probably need to go over these. I think it's fine. Like a tap duel already is like a 6.5. And what with this extra part on it, I think I could bump this up to a 6.9, knowing that humans in the Pauper format, you're going to find a lot of humans. Like whether you're playing Azorius or not, if you're playing Cawgates, you're probably not playing this as one of your Cawgate lands because you'll play like an Azorius Guild Gate instead, and you'll play lots of other gates instead of that. But that Azorius Guild Gate is probably the worst gate you're playing in that deck, and I don't think this replaces that. Even though you could put a couple counters on your Outlaw Medic, and then pump it up even further with the Basilisk Gate, but you're not going to do that. You could though. Goblin Town is a land that enters tapped. It adds Rakdos mana, and you can pay 2 in Rakdos, sacrifice this, and put 2+1/+1 counters on target goblin or orc you control. Activate only as a sorcery. Not as good. There are lots of goblins, sure, to put this on in the Pauper format. Not nearly as many orcs, but you do at least get the option for both of those, and that's not terrible. But in the Pauper format, I think this just feels like a big waste of mana. I'm in red and black. I want to go a lot faster than this, and putting 2+1/+1 counters on some little dinky goblin I have to make it a slightly less dinky goblin doesn't help me out. I think this is probably just like a 6.5. Mirkwood is a land that enters tapped. It adds Golgari mana, or black or green rather. And you can pay 2 in Golgari and tap and sack it to put 2+1/+1 counters on target bear, spider, or wolf you control. Now, those are pretty interesting creature types. And also the colors. Think about the decks that are playing these kinds of colors. Dredge decks. Dredge decks play the changelings for sure. And the changelings count as any of these. We might find some bears. We'll probably definitely find some spiders. Spiders have a decent amount of play. We also had Spider-Man come out, so in the at least the standard environment, you'll have a lot more spiders. And even in Pauper, and we've had plenty of spiders over the years that have been seen enough play a little bit. You could put that on the 2/1, the cop, the Addercop. That's what it's called. You can put 2 counters on the Addercop with this. Ooh, that's actually pretty cool. Mirkwood might be a pretty good one of these. I'd give Mirkwood a little better. I think I could go for a full 7 on that one. Iron Hills enters tapped, adds a red or a white. You can pay 2 and a Boros, tap and sacrifice, or 2 and Boros for this, and put 2+1/+1 counters on target dwarf you control. Probably will be pretty good for limited. I don't think it will be good for anywhere else. I think this might even be worse than the goblin one, just knowing from a Pauper standpoint what dwarf are you really playing. And you also don't have as many changelings that you're going to be playing in these colors, so I think this maybe even dips down into like a 6.3. Not nearly as good. Elven King's Halls is a land that enters tapped. It can make a green or a blue. You can pay 2 and Simic. Sack this land and put 2+1/+1 counters on target elf you control. Activate only as a sorcery. Does this see play in elves? No, it doesn't. You don't need a tapped land in elves. You need to go super fast and elf ball in elves. You also don't need put the +2 the 2 counters on a target creature. You have Timberwatch Elf that puts a giant amount of power and toughness on a creature whenever you need to. Elf decks will sometimes play a little bit of blue, so they can play what is the memory card? Something memories, or something dream memories, or blah blah blah. You draw a card for each. You choose a creature type and you draw a card for each creature of that type you control. Melodies, memories, it doesn't matter. It's like dream melody, dream memory. It's gonna piss me off. I'll find it. But that just because you're paying blue sometimes to play that card, you have other ways of making different colors of mana and elves. You don't need this for elves. So for Pauper, I don't think this really plays much at all. Although again, you have changelings that can potentially play in these creature types, and that might be a little bit more useful. Still not very good though. I think this is probably just a 6.5. And Hobbit Hole is Hobbit Hole is a little interesting. Hobbit Hole's a land. You can tap and sacrifice this land to search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. So we do have an Evolving Wilds. We just have yet another Evolving Wilds. We've been getting a lot of new Evolving Wilds, which I guess are technically new Terramorphic Expanses. That's the first one from Time Spiral. But, we got the Escape Tunnel in Murders of Karlov Manor. We got, I forgot what it's called, but the Urban Sprawl or Urban something in Spider-Man, and I think it was also in Turtles maybe, but we're getting so many of these now. This is kind of ridiculous. I thought the reason we called them Evolving Wilds and Terramorphic Expanse is because they were general enough to work on lots of different places and planes, but we need this one called Hobbit Hole, I guess. But this also has Halfling Cycling for 4 mana, which means you can pay 4, discard this card, search your library for a Halfling card, reveal it, put it in your hand, and then shuffle. Doesn't get a Kithkin, which I know why, but come on. So what I guess I have to ask the question is, how many Halflings do we have in the Pauper format? Is this actually a useful tutor for us at all? Or is this garbage? Legal in Pauper. What am I doing? Oh my God. It's right in front of my face. There you go. Well, actually, hang on. Oh, that's not fair. This set is not in legal in Pauper yet because it's not out yet. So what if we said common halflings instead? I spelled halfling wrong. That's on me. That's on me. I called it halfing. Okay, there you go. Because like we looked at Bilbo. What do you mean? What do you mean there are no halflings? So we get 6, 7. Jeez, God, I really can't count, can I? Can't count, can't spell, can't do anything right. So halfling cycling, 4 mana to discard. To discard this card, search your library for a halfling, put it into your hand, and then shuffle. Are any of these cards worth halfling cycling for? Bilbo we looked at wasn't very good. Gollum we looked at wasn't very good. I mean, I suppose you are tutoring for 2 spells because these both have adventures on it. That's something to consider, I guess. Brandywine Farmer, when it enters or leaves, you create a food token. That's not terrible, but 3 mana 1/1 is kind of terrible, so I'm not really tutoring for that. East Farthing Farmer, 2 and a white for a 2/3 Halfling Peasant. That's better stats. When it enters the battlefield, create a food token. When you discharge a creature, gets +1/+1 until end of turn for each food you control. That's not bad. The food decks in Pauper aren't really white. They're more black and sometimes green, but mostly black. So that's maybe not as useful, but it's the best creature we've seen so far, I think, of these. Nimble Hobbit is 1 and a white for a 1/3. Whenever Nimble Hobbit attacks, you can sacrifice a food or pay 2 and a white. When you do, tap target creature and opponent controls. That's not very good. Took Reaper, which is 1 and a white for a 2/1 Halfling Peasant. And when Took Reaper dies, the ring tempts you. That's not very good. And then the last one is Zentarim Bandit, which is a 2/1 Halfling Rogue for 1 and a black. When it attacks, you can pay a life if you do create a treasure token. That's not bad. It's not amazing, but it's not bad. And knowing that I could then tutor for this, do I really need to pay 4 mana and drop a land to go find a 2 mana card? Probably not. That probably comes way too late. I don't think any of these are worth halfling cycling, which makes Hobbit Hole, for our purposes, for the Pauper format. Although, I just it hit me, obviously. Changelings, of course. What if we're looking for changelings? And we could. We could. There's the green one that exiles the artifact or enchantment. That's the one you might actually want to search for. I'll write it down. I'm not going to buy this card, but I think it's probably worth mentioning as a card to go find. And I keep not saying the name because I've forgotten the name of the one in a green that enters play. You can exile a creature from your graveyard and then exile a artifact or enchantment. The name escaped me. It was the Kaldheim one. Being able to grab that when you need to in the Pauper format. It's very expensive. 4 mana just to go find the guy, and then you got to pay 2 more mana, and then you have to have a creature in your graveyard. That is a lot of hoops to jump through. You can make it work, though, and then you can play that. I don't know. Will a dredge deck want that? Will a green deck want that? That's playing that card. It's a tough call. But it is probably the best use of that. And then otherwise, it is just an Evolving Wilds or a Terramorphic Expanse, and that's not the worst thing. It's not really a playable card in Pauper, because we have so many other ways of getting different land fixing things in there that you don't really play those. Although if you're in a landfall deck, maybe you will. I don't know. It's a good question. This is the last card. I don't know why I'm wasting a bunch of time. We've been here for 3.5 hours. I need to finish this. I'll give this a 6.1. 6.1, and that will end our watch today looking at all of the Pauper legal common cards from Lord of the Rings, The Hobbit. That's not what it's called. It's just called The Hobbit. The Hobbit. H-O-B. Hob. That's it. We did it. I gotta say, looking through the full set, giving it an actual reading and going through the cards and thinking about them more logically, I feel a little bit better about this set than I did when I had just kind of streamed through the previews. I didn't see anything when I was looking at previews that made me go like, whoa, yeah, that's gonna, I know exactly where that goes. I can see the impact of it. It did take me thinking through it a little bit more, seeing these cards, reading them in detail, considering where they could go. So I think this might be a set that grows on you a little bit, but I still think for the Pauper format, like the things I'm looking at here are, I don't know, this might be something that we try for a couple weeks in this deck and probably doesn't go anywhere. This is a card that if maybe if soldiers got better and got more support, maybe this is a card that can go in a deck like that. This is a card that might have a good home in one deck and one deck only. Like those. This isn't like a modern. This certainly isn't like a Modern Horizons 3, and I don't think sets should be. To be honest and clear and fair, I don't want every Magic set to feel like Modern Horizons 3, where oh god, the Pauper format gets completely upheaved by by these crazy common cards. That is not what I'm asking. And honestly, I don't think I'm asking for anything here. This, I think, is a fine outcome. I don't need every set to have some Pauper banger in there. I don't even need every set to have one super banger in there. I don't need every set to have a playable Pauper card. I think it's fine if the format is able to just deal with some of the cards that it has. We have a very deep card pool of commons that go all the way back to Alpha, and we play some of those ones back from Alpha. So I don't need every set to power creep the last one. I'm perfectly happy, especially as a person who doesn't particularly like UB, even if The Hobbit, I think, is one of the less objectionable Universes Beyond sets that's available to us. I'm fine. I'm fine that this set is not some power thing. But there are a couple of cool cards. And I think there are some things that we might want to test out in this format, and maybe some things that will end up seeing some pretty decent play. I think especially if you're asking me the two cards that I think have the most chance of going anywhere, I think Giant's Boulder, like I said, is going to be probably the best card in the set for the Pauper format. And then Long Body Gray Dog, I think will also see some surprising amount of play, and people will probably be trying that out and seeing that it does more than they might originally think it does. But those are some good cards. And then we got some real stinkers like this Goblin Plate Mail, which is bad. Anyway, that is way enough of your time. Thank you for sticking with me for all this time. If you have, I'm sure you took some breaks. I kind of wish I could have taken some breaks during it. But I like doing these. These are good for me because I have pre-release coming up here next week, and I'll get some more hands-on time with these cards and have a better idea of how I feel about them. And then I'll make my most interesting Pauper cards of the Hobbit set, where I can peek a little deeper on where these cards might go, how they feel, and can talk about them from a limited perspective as well, in not just theorizing about it, but actually have some knowledge. So that'll be good. Look forward to that. In the meantime, like I said, go do that. Do your civic duty. Go vote. That's important. And enjoy the Hobbit. And I'll see you back here for Reality Fractures next, right? I was about to be like, oh god, it's Star Trek, but no, it's Reality Fracture. We're excited about Reality Fracture. That one's going to be really, really cool. And I haven't mentioned it on the anywhere on the channel yet, but we've saw the new in-universe sets for next year. Obviously, you don't really care about listening to me talk about those at the end of a 3.5 hour plus video. We might give its own video, but extremely excited for Kamigawa Titanfall. I'm a big not Titanfall, Titan Breach. Extremely excited for that one, just as a big Kamigawa fan. Generally, I think Zalfir looks awesome. I think Noctis is something that a lot of people are going to think are really cool. I will probably find things I like about it, but that one is not quite as cool to me. But I think Zalfir and Kamigawa are stellar sets, super awesome. Those are going to be so fun, even if they are Pauper bummers. They are flavor bangers. I obviously need to stop this. Thank you for joining me. I'll catch you later. Bye.